8 to 11 Eastern Time, your home for all things Big 12.
Off and rolling here on Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, heard exclusively on TuneIn, watched on the Big 12 Fast Channel, Big 12 Studios. Welcome in. He is Ari Timken. I'm James Westling. We've got T-Chains, Taman Turner, our audio producer. Anthony Smith is the man behind the camera getting us on the television side if you're watching us there. Fellas, happy NBA Draft Reaction Day.
Yeah, I would say the draft went in some ways exactly as we expected, certainly at the top, but I would also say that there were some pretty significant surprises there, especially for the Big 12.
Both things can be and were definitely true as the Big 12 shattered the Big 12 record book at the Barclays Center last night for the NBA draft. And if you thought that Brendan Sorsby was going away in any way, shape, or form, boy, do we have a surprise for you.
Ah,
The story that will never die. But just your initial thoughts on the draft. So, watching it last night, like the first 4 or 5 picks, I think pretty much went as planned. You know, ESPN has their big board that's running on the ticker, and every single guy was lining up with that spot until we got to pick 6, I believe. Your Bulls took Caleb Wilson. AJ DeBonsa goes #1 overall to the Wizards. Darren Peterson, who the Jazz flew to him for a meeting, not the other way around over the weekend. He goes to the Jazz #2. Kingston Flemings goes #8 to the Hawks, and then the Bucks take Braden Burries. So the Big 12 with 4 of the top 10 picks last night and 9 first rounders. Just your initial off the cuff reaction.
yeah, I mean, I guess I was a little bit surprised that it actually was DeBonsa, despite, basically every mock draft, every analyst thinking that he would be the pick. But the first 4 picks, really the first 5 picks, I think were pretty obvious based upon just the reporting and the mock drafts that have come out. But the Big 12 ends up with 4 top 10 picks. It felt like Adam Silver spent a lot of time practicing how to say AJ's real first name, said he would really nail it, and so much so that he didn't practice the other names enough. I love a New Era hat. I'm a big New Era hat guy. I've got like 70 of them, but I have no idea what the NBA is doing right now with their merch. Like, did you guys notice the hats? Very bedazzled last night. The NBA gear when the championship gear from the Knicks looked like an affliction shirt. I don't know what the NBA is doing right now with its gear. Are they trying to get women to buy the hats? I don't know. But shout out New Era, great hats. Don't really understand what the NBA is doing with these hats.
They're a stone's throw away from putting wings on the back of all their jerseys, just kind of built in, like the Affliction T vibes.
Yes.
I was a huge fan of AJ DeBonsa's suit, which also had, I don't know if that was a floral pattern or something that ties back to his non-American roots, but it has had a little bedazzled esque to it.
Yes.
No tie. Went with the button down white, which that's a look I've got to try. I've got to try that. Let's scrap the ties. We're done with ties.
Yeah, I don't know if you could pull off that move, but I mean maybe.
I think I'd lean a little more homeless looking than AJ DeBonsa. Like he looked fresh. Kingston Flemings was the best dressed in my eyes. He had like the Houston red, but it was like a deep red, a very tailored suit. I thought he looked clean.
Would you call that a burgundy?
Oh yeah, a deep berg. It was a deep berg. Deep berg. Taman has more of a crimson colored polo on today. That was a deep berg last night. It was also really cool to see just all the Big 12 coaches there. Like every camera shot, you saw Kelvin Sampson or Scott Drew, or, I mean, there were just Big 12 guys everywhere.
Biggest surprise had to be Koa Pete as the last pick of the first round. Feels like the Suns got a steal there, and of course, sort of a hometown kid, if you will, coming going from Arizona to the Phoenix Suns. But yeah, I'd be very curious to hear why NBA evaluators so many of them passed up on him. I mean, with all due respect to Joshua Jefferson, some of these other guys later in the first round, I feel like Pete is the better prospect, but Suns ended up with a really good one.
So Pete, because the Mavs had that draft pick. They draft Pete, but he gets traded, and first it's to the Knicks, and then he ends up with Phoenix. All the late round trades have me just my head is spinning with
Well,
everything that
every
took
trade,
place.
this is my annual reminder to the NBA, and I'm not the only one here. Like, I don't really understand. Change your league year, make the draft like the start of the league year. I mean, even the Giannis trade.
Totally.
So, like, the commissioner comes out after the Heat draft, and then he says there's been a trade. The rights to, the 13th pick have been traded. And it's like, but yeah, that's part of the Giannis trade, dude. You're so far behind. It's it's just crazy. It's like Adam Silver and the NBA are living in the newspaper world where you got to wait for the newspaper to be delivered every day in the morning to get the news. And it's like we're here in the digital world where, you don't have to wait 30 seconds to get fake news on the internet, okay?
I'm
So,
also I'm really glad you brought up the AJ Bonsa using his real name. That had my head spinning, like
yeah.
right off the top. He starts to announce who the number one pick is, and I thought they had a stashed player in South Sudan that they were taking at number one. Like for a split second, I freaked out. I thought it's not DeBonsa,
It's
it's
not
not
Peterson.
Peterson.
What? Oh,
Who
wait.
is this magic man who 8'11" from overseas? That was news to me that he didn't go by or birth name of AJ. Another highlight for me was I can't remember which player it was. I think it may have been Mikhail Brown at number 6, but one of the players' moms in the interview room, Lisa Salters asked the question. The dad goes on a long tangent. She throws it to the mom, and the mom says, "What he said? Mm-hmm. Yep. Everything that he just said. Yes." I don't know if she couldn't hear. She just panicked, but it was awesome. I was like, been there, done that.
Well, it felt like so they do kind of like the family interviews, post draft pick. They get like the couch, you got the whole setup. And it felt like there were some parents that just didn't want to be like did not want to do it. And yet despite that, they still did it. The other part of that was like it felt like they were really only asking the mom questions, which I thought was an interesting choice. Like in the case of Boozer, I don't know. You got a former NBA All Star there. That's his dad, and like they were adamant about asking the mom questions. It was kind of bizarre to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one that noticed that, but it felt like they just went out of their way to just ask their mom questions. Can we just interview the guy and move on? I don't. Why do I need the whole family interviews?
Bro,
In some cases, maybe they're necessary. I'm not trying to say like, but for 30 picks or whatever, however many of the picks that were there seemed excessive.
well, and I was explaining to my boys last night because there's 5 minutes on the clock, but it takes a good 10 between picks because the pick is in for another 5 minutes. So I was trying to explain to them the entire process, and we're just sitting there, and they're in the interview room, and I don't know if that's by design, like if some of the interviews are longer because they're stalling for the next pick. I don't know, but the Boozer camp, the Boozer compound that they had there at the draft, we didn't need to hear from every single brother, mom, dad, every single brother. I couldn't tell who the older brother was and the younger brother was. They're all saying the same thing.
Yeah, very repetitive.
Yeah. All right. So Cameron Carr was a little bit of a surprise to me. He slides to pick number 24. Per the Big 12 release, you've got DeBonsa at number 1. Peterson goes number 2. Fleming's number 8 overall. Burry's number 10. Christian Anderson goes 18 to the Hornets. Cameron Carr goes 24 to the Knicks, who they shipped to the Lakers. The Celtics take Chris Sanak at number 27. Joshua Jefferson jumps into the first round at number 28, and then Koa Pete gets taken at number 30. So Koa Pete, when I saw that he could potentially be traded to the Knicks, I got really excited because I thought if Julius Randle can have a 15-year NBA career, Koa
Right.
Pete can have a very long, successful NBA career. And maybe he does that in Phoenix now because, to your point, he's right in his own backyard. Of all the guys taken, what was, I guess, the biggest surprise or best landing spot or wherever you want to go?
Yeah, I mean, the first one is the Koa Pete slide, and you wonder like what kind of advice he got in terms of changing his shot to for the combine because that did not go over well, and neither did it with NBA evaluators. Kind of feel like Christian Anderson is the best steal of this draft for any team, Big 12 or otherwise. Also love, that Atlanta trades Trey Young and then drafts Kingston Flemings. I think Flemings is an upgraded version of Trey Young, which obviously says a lot because Young's been a very productive NBA player, but loved that pick. And yeah, Christian Anderson. I think the two picks that I loved the most were Kingston Flemings to Atlanta and Christian Anderson to Charlotte. Charlotte's not been very good at he did end up with Charlotte, yes?
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, again, the hats and like the trades, it's extremely confusing. Can we just identify the team he's actually gonna play for? I think that'd be really easy. But yeah, size, undersized or not, I mean, he's probably the best shooter in this draft. Hornets are not known for having good picks, but it feels like they've had, in my opinion, two really good drafts back to back. Con Knipple has become kind of a star after his rookie year last year, so I really like the Charlotte pick.
How about because we're headquartered here in Dallas, from a Mavs perspective, Dusty
Oh, the
May
Michigan
apparently
Mavs.
the Michigan Mavs trying to draft the Michigan All-Star team, taking Johnson at number 9. I was really hoping that Kingston Flemings would slide to pick number 9. I had a feeling Atlanta would take him, but I thought he would be perfect with Cooper Flag. But they take Johnson. Uh, T Chains, I know you're all in on the Mavs. How do you feel about the pick?
It was not what I was expecting, but hearing Dusty May talk about Morris Johnson and what the Mavs need from a defensive kind of four, they say he's a very Isaiah Stewart type, like from the Pistons. It sounds like it's going to be a good fit, and the Mavs need some defensive guys because they were not a good defensive team last year, and it sounds like PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford may get traded.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was sort of a surprise pick from the standpoint of, you get a guy with the upside being defense, rebounding, hustle, smarts, IQ, but not necessarily an elite scorer. I think a guy that eventually can, especially, if Derek Lively can figure out a way to stay healthy, it feels like he's a good pairing with Lively too. But I mean, it's really interesting because Dusty May had his crack at any of the Michigan players, and he took Morris Johnson. He also had a hilarious reaction when Oklahoma City took Adai Mara, and I think we all did. Like, you look up and you're like, oh, that's Oklahoma City? Ugh. Stop trading first round picks to Oklahoma City. What are you morons doing?
Yeah.
Blame the Clippers.
Mara is right. Mara is a steal for one of the best teams in the league. And if you're the Spurs, it's like, oh, perfect. They just kind of gift wrapped them a guy that could probably guard Wemby a little bit better than anybody else they could have gotten in free agency or the draft.
Yeah, they just got the tallest guy, the big with probably the best footwork. Like, he's a former volleyball player. He's an elite shot blocker.
Super annoying. Super annoying.
It really is. All right, we'll talk more about the draft here coming up after the break, but we teased off the top that the Brendan Sorsby saga will never end. So the NFL drops yesterday that they're not going to hold a supplemental draft, and the NFL is, and again, like, what's different is the NFL, this is coming from the league office. It's not like the Jets wanted to pick up Brendan Sorsby or sign him, even if there isn't a supplemental draft and the other 31 teams said no. Like, he has to be cleared by the league office. He's going to sue. He's got Kessler in his pocket. Just what'd you make of the Brendan Sorsby supplemental draft stuff?
Well, I mean, Roger Goodell did what Charlie Baker could not do. I think that's basically it. The letter that the NFL lawyers sent to Sorsby that was released publicly is pretty damning. And I mean, like, he's going to have to take his medicine, period. Like, he was trying to avoid a suspension of any kind, and he sued in order to get that injunction, which avoided the suspension. And the NFL took notice, and the NFL is basically giving him a suspension. You can go play elsewhere, but you are not going to play here in 2026. The reasoning and rationale behind it, James, they identified as you basically you turned in your petition with 3 days before the deadline. You did not demonstrate, any accountability for your conduct, how you'd adhere to the league's rules and policies, what any explanation, any supporting documents with 3 days before the deadline. And I mean, they hit the kicker there in this letter, basically like, oh, and by the way, after your option to play at college football was fully exercised. So like, we see what you're doing here. We're not stupid. We see this, and this is our reaction to it. And look, if you're Brendan Sorsby at this point, your option is like, do you go play NAIA football, or do you take the money that you have paid Jeffrey Kessler, go pay some really good quarterbacks coach, and go to work for the next year to get ready for the draft? Because you're not going to have any film at any level that I think NFL teams will, I'm not sure your draft status is going to be increased at any point based upon your current situation. So go get ready to play and go prove everybody wrong that passes up on you in this upcoming 2027 draft.
So who do you think was the better college quarterback, Brendan Sorsby or Shedeur Sanders?
Shedeur.
So if Shedeur, a projected top 10 pick most of the year, can fall all the way to the 5th round because teams don't like him and they think he's arrogant and cocky, like I just struggle to see a team touching Brendan Sorsby. Can he go play in the Canadian League?
Yeah. Yeah, he could play in the Canadian League.
Arena ball?
He could play arena ball. I mean, he could play UFL, but that season's over. So by the time the next season starts, the draft will have already happened. He could play NAIA football, I believe. I think those are pretty much his options. It seems like Canadian League might be his best option, but I also I don't know. It feels like if I'm him and I'm weighing, do I play another year somewhere, or do I just train and get ready and take my medicine? Because I don't know how much you're going to impact your draft status playing in the Canadian Football League. Like, you're not going to become Sorsby's not going to be a first round pick. He needed this year to prove that he could be a first round pick, and he's not going to get this year to do it. And so he's out of options.
I've got the perfect landing spot. NAIA football, Bethany College Swedes in Lindsborg, Kansas.
In where?
Lindsborg, Kansas.
I was thinking of Baker University in Baldwin City, Kansas.
Well, the Bethany Swedes invented the air raid offense. College Football Hall of Fame coach Ted Kessinger was running the air raid back in the 80s. Mike Leach, a lot of these air raid guys modeled their offense after what he did. They were called the Swedish Air Force. Like, it was way before its time, but it was at this really tiny school of about 600 students in little Lindsborg, Kansas. It's a really cool story. All right, coming up next, we will hear from DeBonsa, the other Big 12 guys. I was thinking
Al Mummy was the father of the air raid. I stand corrected.
Ted Kessinger. Look him up. He's a dude. He is a dude. We'll also play a replay of the Kevin Young interview that we had yesterday because it is still very relevant. The BYU men's basketball coach, how he got A.J. DeBonsa ready for the NBA and what he looks for when he tries to identify the next NBA superstars. So more draft stuff coming up around the corner. With Ari Timken, I'm James Westling. We are off and cooking here on a Stand on Business Wednesday.
Good pass, right, in rhythm, no good. Whoa! What was that? A.J. DeBonsa coming out of the rafters. Yikes! Just goes up, one hand, gathers, finishes with authority, and the stare down for good measure. DeBonsa, one-on-one, crossover, elevates, knocks down the shot, and a foul! That should not be legal. I mean, the shimmy, the shake, creates space. That's 6'9", getting to his spot, elevating up, getting fouled with elite level footwork and ball handling. A.J. DeBonsa putting on
A.J. DeBonsa, 6'9", wing, playmaker, versatile offensive player. Really elite defender, big-time athlete.
Dibonsa initiates off the wing. Gets the switch from Powell. Drives on Powell. Oh! Air AJ takes off.
The goal is to win. I mean, it's not too complicated up in my head. It's just win.
Dibonsa inside.
I think Houston just fell asleep on the inbounds. They weren't ready to play defense.
Smiling as he was hanging in the air when he fired that pass. Dibonsa. Oh, he spins one home. Come on, man. What can he do?
Then the physicality that he plays with. The guy that's on the team that's blowing the other team out, or if you're losing, we get There you go. It's time to clear vision for that one. That was incredible. 2 feet.
21 for Dibonsa. Here's a steal. And the highlight of the night.
The dunk of the night after the steal.
First, use those long arms to get a clean steal, and then a little. How do we describe this one? It's like a little bit of a windmill.
Kind of a windmill.
A little bit of a windmill.
Saunders 19 and Wright with 9. Another steal. Here they come again. Hello, Sports Center. What a dunk by Dibonsa. Look at this.
When Dibonsa gave it up, he knew he was going to get it back. He trusted, if I give this up to Richie, he's going to get it back to me right here. That's great communication without talking by two great players.
This is the Big 12 Conference. This is a different league. We are Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio with you each and every weekday from 8 to 11 Eastern Time. NBA draft last night, round 1 in the books, round 2 tonight. Alongside Ari Timken, I'm James Westling. AJ Dibonsa goes number 1 overall. Darren Peterson, number 2. Also, forgot to mention this at the start of the show. Why does Adam Silver just continue to look so creepy? That's it. Full stop.
It's hard to disagree there. With all due respect to Adam Silver, his looks. Can we do something about that?
And I can't figure out what it is. Is the head too shaven? Is it the eyes, the blanks? I don't know. I can't put my finger on it. And you said he butchered a bunch of names. I had the volume down real low and was just kind of watching.
I wouldn't say he butchered a bunch of names, but he did, I feel like, struggle at times. Like he had like a long pregnant pause before certain names, or I can't, some of the other ones, it was like one of the guy from Germany who they also, so Dirk Nowitzki played with his dad.
Saw that. Mm-hmm.
And Dirk either recorded a video for him or was going to ask him a question, but there was no audio on it. It was super awkward because nobody realized, because they just kept letting it run. Like they didn't stop it after the first 10 seconds of clearly no audio being disseminated. So it was bizarre. And then the family is sitting there like trying to listen, and of course they can't listen. There's no freaking audio. But the reason I brought that up is because Adam Silver kind of gave this long pause before, and then he said it in a way I was like, was that did he butcher his name or not? But as somebody that often butchers names, I feel like that's a tough job. That might be Adam Silver's toughest job. Maybe Roger Goodell's toughest job, because like that's a big deal for that person to hear their name called. You got to get it right. There's no messing that up.
Yeah, and I'm the ultimate name butcher as well. I would think the names would be written phonetically, but maybe I'm wrong. I make the mistake of making the more complicated names. I'll really lean in and make sure I've got like the actual phonetic guide, but it's the simple names actually that I seem to butcher all the time, like Ade Mara. Like that could go a million different ways. It's only like 8 letters, but it could be anything.
It's true. Luckily,
the Dirk clip, because I saw that clip. So was there no audio for us at home viewing it? Because I had the sound down, so I wouldn't know either way. And I turned to my wife and kids. I said, "Hey, look, it's Dirk. He's on the screen." But even if I had the volume up, you mean I wouldn't have been able to hear him?
Yeah, that's what I mean. You were none the wiser. You were like, "Oh yeah, there's Dirk. He was on, wishing his guy nice congratulations."
Had no idea. Had no clue. Man, somebody lost a job last night. That can't happen.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, brutal. Can I just say something really quick that is unrelated to all of this, but it's just, I think, important to say?
That today's World UFO Day?
Well, that too.
Okay.
Which actually may explain what I'm bringing up here. So, as many people who listen to the show know, I'm a White Sox fan, Chicago White Sox fan, big White Sox fan. Last night, the White Sox beat the Guardians for their 41st win of the season. 2 years ago, the White Sox went 41 and 121. They set the record for the all-time losses in the history of baseball with 121 losses, but 41 wins. So on June 23rd, they hit the exact number of win total they had in the entire season in 2024. The reason I bring this up is because, like, the best part about sports is to expect the unexpected. There was really no tell that the White Sox would be as good as they've been so far this year. Like maybe in their wildest dreams, they could have pushed for 500, which would have been a humongous step forward for an organization that's lost 100 games in 3 consecutive years. And again, lost 141 or 121 in 2 years ago. But again, it's just another reminder of, like, in sports, sometimes things go exactly as planned and sometimes things go completely the opposite. And I feel like as we preview this football season, like that's exactly the best way to describe what we're going to see in football when it starts in August this year. Like we're going through the consensus. We'll do that later today. I think we were on number 7. And we put together this list. We've done all this research. We've talked all off season about these teams. Like, we know these teams. We probably know these teams better than anybody, other than the coaches themselves for the individual teams. But in terms of all 16 Big 12 teams, we know them inside and out better than anybody. And yet, despite that, we're going to totally botch this top 16 list. Because in sports, you have to expect the unexpected. Things that we think are going to be major crucial factors for why a team might be good are actually going to be reasons for why they might not be good, and vice versa. A major hole might actually be a strength of a team. That's why we keep watching. I think that's what really draws us to sports, is to see things that you don't expect to see things you've never seen before, to expect the unexpected.
I'm just glad somebody's still watching baseball. I had to talk Rangers baseball yesterday. I wanted to bang my head against the wall. Somehow they're 2 games below 500 and still very much in the playoff picture. And we talked about your White Sox. So that's a great note, and I think it's a great segue into what the Wizards could be with A.J. DiBonsa, because now you pair him with Trae Young. You've got Anthony Davis. Who knows how many games he plays. But also Alex Sarr. Like, Alex Sarr has been in just a dismal 2024 or 2023, I think it was, NBA draft. He's been the best player. He's probably got the most upside. He's like one of just a small number of guys that's even averaging double figures. So all of a sudden, the Wizards have put together at least a pretty good nucleus. Here's what A.J. DiBonsa said, clip 2, about how he thinks him and Trae Young are going to find balance together as both volume scorers.
I think I found balance. I mean, I can play off ball. I mean, a lot of people seen that, obviously, going to BYU, but I can play off ball and play off ball with I play with Tyron Stokes and other number one guys. When I go to USA, I'm not the number one option. And so I can play off ball, and obviously I have to pay my way. Obviously, I'm rocking in with some vets, so definitely not earn my spot.
What do you think about that combo, Trae Young, A.J. DiBonsa, and then, Sarr's a legit 7 feet, and you've got Anthony Davis. Sarr's only played, 2 years in the league? Trying to find his numbers. Last year, he averaged 16 points per game, over 7.5 rebounds, 2 blocks per game. Like, they've got some pieces now.
Well, and they probably have finally the right front office. You'd be hard pressed to find a more irrelevant franchise, not only in recent history, but quite frankly, in the history of the NBA. The Washington Bullets won the NBA championship back in 1977, 1978. But I mean, they've just even playoff appearances in the 2000s have been, very difficult to come by. They better hope they didn't screw this one up. I would have taken Peterson number 1. This is not a knock on DiBonsa. I would have taken Peterson number 1. Maybe Utah now is the great beneficiary of Washington making this move. But yeah, I mean, I think, as you just said, like, they've got finally some pieces where it looks like they might be able to actually build something here. With Sarr, Trae Young, I think he's got to become a different kind of player. Like, he's been a big time scorer and player, but it feels like a lot of empty numbers on some bad teams. And so, I think he's got to become more of a distributor to let DiBonsa become the key scorer for them. But the Wizards, again, probably the most irrelevant NBA franchise, looking to finally build something beyond, Gilbert Arenas and John Wall.
Yeah, they've been down bad for a while. Darren Peterson goes to Utah at number 2. Here's what Peterson said about what it means for him to be the highest drafted KU player since Wiggins over a decade ago.
There's a lot. Some of the hard work paying off. Had a great year in Kansas. We'll do it a million more times. Rock Chalk, appreciate all those guys, and hopefully they continue to be fans. They're now Utah fans.
He is a man of few words.
Such a great year, man. What a memorable, fun season.
Oh, that picture he took with Curtis Townsend, longtime KU assistant coach, that I sent you guys yesterday, just had me rolling. Like, Darren Peterson looks bored out of his mind. Didn't crack even a quarter smile.
That's how he looks. That's just how he looks.
He's a hooper, though. All right, with the Jazz, The Jazz have been bad for a while, but they've got some pieces now, and I've seen a lot on social media about everybody highlighting that the Jazz are going to be the breakthrough team now with Darren Peterson. I think I like the Wizards roster and fit a little bit better, but Peterson himself, he's going to be a dog if he's out there on the floor. It's just, I don't know if it's because Darren Peterson reminds me so much of MJ and Kobe, just the way he plays, but in my brain, it just looks foreign to me to see him wearing a Jazz uniform.
Well, and you know, look, it's funny because 6 months ago, if you would have told Utah that they'd end up with the number 2 pick, they probably would have been ecstatic because they figured 6 months ago that the number 2 pick would be DeBonsa and not Peterson. So it's sort of funny how things work out. Look, we'll never know the true story, and it's really interesting from a standpoint of you just wonder how much all of this noise, all of the attention, and probably more to the point, you wonder how much the decisions from an agent and maybe some handlers played in Peterson going 2 and not 1. Feels like this whole situation was overmanaged to the point where, you know, you had a guy that was probably from, I don't know, time he entered high school or at least became a sophomore in high school, was set to be the number 1 pick. They did not end up becoming the number 1 pick. It felt like it was overmanaged. So I think that's worth mentioning here because that's what we're coming out of. But look, Keontae George from Baylor has been a very good young player for Utah. So with him and Peterson now, they've got a good young core. And look, there are potentially, I mean, you mentioned the 2024 draft with Alex Sarr and how bad it is. I mean, it's real bad. Now, time will tell how good it ends up being. There's certainly some players that could end up turning careers around or continuing to grow, but this one looks like the complete opposite of that draft.
You think the NBA is really going to lean into the DeBonsa-Peterson rivalry? Because they had a very brief interaction pre-draft. It was like you and me at the gym crossing paths, just a quick little fist bump, nod, and then they go their separate
I barely
ways.
know you. Yeah. It should. I mean, it reminds me in some ways of the NBA trying to lean into Carmelo Anthony, LeBron James, when that first, you know, when those two guys were paired. Yeah, I mean, you should. I don't know how often Washington and Utah play,
right?
But I absolutely think that is like those guys are going to forever be linked, you know, because they were 1-2 in the class, because they both played in the Big 12, so they got to play each other in college, you know, and then of course because now they went 1-2, you know, in the draft. So those are guys that are going to forever be linked together.
They're both studs. Cannot wait to see how it all shakes out. Up next here on Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, we are going to play the conversation that we had yesterday with Kevin Young, who coached A.J. DeBonsa at BYU. They have another top 5 prospect headed to Provo and Bruce Branch III. Remember, Kevin Young is really the guy that mentored and tutored and built Devin Booker into the player that he is, and also kind of revived Chris Paul's career in Phoenix. So he has a long NBA track record and pedigree. Kevin Young is coming up next. We are powered by Modelo for you full-time fans here exclusively on TuneIn and on Big 12 Studios.
Peterson jams it. Oh, what a finish by Darren Peterson.
Just goes right over the top of 2 BYU defenders, including Keba Keita, for a spectacular finish.
A guy that's got a little bit of height, Darren Peterson, who I feel like is probably as good a prospect / player that I've ever been in.
It looks so easy at times. Look at that. Careful. And then the bounce off of 2, the finish. Never in a hurry.
I would say something that motivates me is myself. I'm self-motivated. I don't come from much, so I'm just prepared to go out there, leave on the court. I'm not gonna lie, I feel like I've been in love with basketball from the jump. My dad was a coach, my older brother played, and it was just something I knew I would do with my life.
Love to see it, John.
Under 90 seconds. They find Peterson. Launches. creativity, the strength. This is an important steal. Peterson will slam it. Derek Peterson, not just a gifted offensive player, a pretty good defensive player as well.
Emmanuel Sharp doesn't come back to the ball. He lets the ball come to him, and Peterson just shot the gap.
And now he comes up with a one-hand steal. Got a man to his left, and it's back for the stop. Nice feed by Peterson. Trey White catch it on.
Derek Peterson slowed up a little bit to get the timing right with his teammate, and that just led to a picture-perfect pass. I love the mindset that Derek Peterson has come out with.
And he's got it right now. Peterson hoists and hits. That is what Derek Peterson can do, folks. He can be a one-man wrecking crew, and he has 16 to lead Kansas at intermission.
Incredibly poised in this game, letting the game come to him. But in late clock situations, you want to get it to your money guy, and a little crossover there to get a little separation.
Nobody's within 5 feet of him that whole possession. I tell you what, if there's one guy you can't lose on this team, it's Peterson.
Along with James Westling, I'm Ari Temkin. It's Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. Kevin Young is BYU's basketball coach, joining us right now in advance of tonight's NBA draft. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. How you guys doing?
And very well, thank you. Appreciate your time as always. All right, so Kevin is in New York and hoping like we all are, that A.J. DeBonce's name will be the first one off the board tonight for the Washington Wizards. And I guess, Kevin, what has the last few months been like for you? I'm sure many teams and friends of yours that you've worked with in the NBA have called you to pick your brain a little bit about not just A.J., but of Richie as well.
Yeah, man, it's been exciting. Yeah, been a lot of phone calls, a lot of several in-person little sit-downs. And, look, these guys, these teams are so smart, and they work so hard. They've done a year's worth of scouting on these guys, but you know, it's fun to, you know, leverage some of the relationships, you know, from my past life to really just talk to, you know, have real conversations, shed some light on things I might be able to share, you know, in hopes that our guys get put into some great situations.
Yeah, Kevin, how much do NBA teams or did NBA teams actually consult with you about Dibonsa? Because, like, he's so good, the tape speaks for itself, right?
Yeah, I think from a basketball standpoint, you know, I think these guys clearly understand what AJ can do. You know, a lot of the questions are more about stuff you don't see on the film. You know, the day to day, the interpersonal stuff. You know, just dynamics surrounding, you know, AJ and his life and Richie's as well. Uh, you know, they're trying to. I mean, look, these are huge decisions, right? These are franchise altering decisions, so they're trying to get as much information about these young men as they can.
You know, how much was, you know, getting AJ to the NBA or being the number 1 overall pick part of your presentation and pitch to AJ to get him to BYU?
Well, it's funny enough. I mean, the pitch, and I haven't even told this story in quite some time. Was actually quote unquote more than the number 1 pick, right? Like being the number 1 pick is great tonight, and I really hope that happens for him. But at the end of the day, man, it's about longevity in the NBA. It's about a 15-year career where you hit the ground running when you get there. Um, and that's a lot of the stuff that we had talked about with him coming in. But, look, I think there's been so much made of where, which pick he is and all this type of stuff. You really want to go to a situation that you feel very comfortable with, that you like the franchise, you like the coaches, you trust the management team, you trust how they're going to maximize your talents. And, that's really what I'm hoping for AJ.
So, Kevin, what are the things to help prepare a player for longevity and decades in the league versus a guy that flames out after a couple of years?
Well, I mean, and this is something I share with him because I was fortunate enough for the NBA to see it all.
Right.
I had top 3 picks that flamed out. I had MVP type level guys at those picks, and so, based off my experience, I think the thing that produces longevity is really just the daily habits of what it takes to be a high level professional. Taking care of your body, getting your work in. It's like brushing your teeth. You just have to do it every day. You just have to be diligent about it, and doing it at a level that's not just going through the motions. It's studying the game. It's being a good teammate. It's communicating with your head coach, with the management team. Having a human element to it. So there's just so many more things that go into it than obviously just being able to bounce a ball. And hopefully those are some things that AJ was able to pick up while he was with us.
It feels like AJ, really took off individually after the Saunders injury. Obviously, we know that was devastating for the team and devastating for the league. He's been such a good player for this league for multiple years. But like, did you have an expectation of, he's going to have to play 40 minutes at that point based on a lack of depth, or was it just him sort of advocating for heavy minutes? Give us a sense here of how that worked, because the dude just was always available and always scoring.
Yeah, no, extremely reliable. I mean, look, going into the year, I did think we'd be a little, top heavy with the minutes, and some seasons are like that. I mean, obviously Richie going down was big, but prior to him going down, we lost like 4 other guys. So we literally had 5 guys that couldn't play. And so we really had no choice. But, one thing that was awesome about AJ is, he never batted an eye. He just, whatever we needed him to do, he would take that head on and do it. And I think that speaks a lot about, his character, his competitiveness. I think sometimes that gets lost in him just because of the talent. I mean, the dude's ultra competitive, loves to play basketball, and those are things that'll serve him well.
Kevin, I'm reading a piece, hiding in plain sight. Richie Saunders could be this year's draft steal. Like, it's not just Dibonsa. Richie Saunders is kind of all over the map in terms of a lot of the big boards that I see. What are you telling teams about Richie, and how is his recovery, and where's he at?
Well, first of all, the recovery's going great. You know, it was for as far as knee injuries go, it was a clean injury, right? So he's ahead of schedule there by all accounts. And so, look, we ironically had just hired a new PT. Shout out to my guy Dylan at BYU. He's done a phenomenal job with Richie, and that's actually paid quite a few dividends for Richie. But look, in terms of his range and things like that, the funny thing is I don't even have to tell teams anything about him. There's so many teams like Richie. You know, I think if you're a true basketball purist, it's impossible not to love what Richie brings to the table, just with, you know, obviously the motor, you know, the rebounding, and obviously the way he's able to make shots at such a high clip. I mean, it's really hard to find guys that, especially at his size and length, that shoot the ball at such a high clip, but then just do other things so well. You know, like I said, he rebounds at a high level. He's able to, you know, you run him off the 3-point line. He's a tremendous finisher. So it's funny, man, because I think so many teams thought at one point that Richie was a guy they were going to just sneak in, and now it's I can't wait to see who makes the leap and does what's necessary to get Richie.
Yeah, obviously there's so much focus here on AJ and where he goes, but Darren Peterson as well, and it's a guy that you coached against. What's your scouting report on Darren Peterson? And if NBA teams asked you your thoughts on him, what would you tell them?
Well, I think one thing that's super interesting when you start talking about evaluation of these young guys is how are they being maximized, right? Like you look at Darren's high school film and he had the ball in his hands a little bit more than he did when he was at Kansas. Coach Self was running him off quite a few off-ball screens, and so he showed his ability to play off the ball. I've heard some. I was talking to one NBA head coach actually the other day, and he felt like Darren felt like he wanted to and is better playing with the ball in his hands a little bit more, right? And so I don't know. It's tricky because you have to look at it through different lenses when you're evaluating these young men. And the one thing that Darren does have is he's dynamic. He can really shoot it, obviously, but I think about the dunk he had against us. Driving down a lane, explosive athlete. So, I think a lot was made of all the whatever you want to call it, injuries and stuff like that this year with him. But look, kid's super talented. Guys like him who shoot it the way he does and have the athleticism and handle the way he does, obviously do well in the league. So I wish Darren well, man. It'll be fun. It'll really be fun for the NBA to usher in. Look, I know there's a lot of guys kind of that are mocked underneath Darren and AJ, but to have Darren and AJ come into the league this same year and watch that sort of competition and budding rivalry, right before our eyes over the next decade will be pretty fun for just basketball fans, I think.
Yeah. BYU head coach Kevin Young with us on Big 12 today. So with AJ and Darren, who are the comps? Like, who are current or former NBA players that you think these two guys could eventually be in the league?
Yeah. I think, comps are fun, man, to kind of rack your brain to see who you think these guys might play like, but they're also, look, both these young men are obviously their own guy. I know AJ prides himself on that. I see a little bit of different parts of people's game in AJ. I've always felt like peak Paul George was someone that AJ reminded me of, but he does have some KD in him, right? When he gets that little mid post pull up and stuff like that. So I think AJ's got a little bit of mix of those two guys in there. Darren, I think about different guys, in their primes when I was in the league. I think about peak Victor Oladipo, someone that's similar in size, handles the ball well. The way he shoots it, though, man, like I always loved watching Ray Allen come off screens. Darren got a little bit of that in him. But I'm excited to see those guys come into the league and see them make their own names for themselves.
Yeah, great stuff. Kevin Young, BYU's head basketball coach, joining us here at the NBA draft tonight in New York City. Kevin's out there supporting his BYU guys. You were a guy that many expected to become an NBA head coach, and so you went the college route at BYU, and we know the reasons behind that. Dusty May goes the opposite path from Florida Atlantic 3 years ago now to the Dallas Mavericks. What are your thoughts on that, and some of the noise around the reporting for why Dusty maybe made that decision?
I mean, look, career decisions are so personal for every person, right? And so, it's funny. I was sitting next to Dusty at a recruiting event early this summer, and getting to know a little bit more about his family and stuff like that. It seemed like now that that's come out, it seemed like he's in a good spot with his personal life to make a decision like that. So, super excited for him, man. The NBA is awesome. Such a fun league, and it'll be a great challenge for Dusty to sort of figure out how to get it done at that level. He's working with some great people, and Mike Schmitz, and who's a good guy, and it'll be interesting to see how quickly he adapts, because it is a different league, right? It's very interesting in terms of what your day-to-day life looks like as an NBA coach versus a college coach. I think that's the big difference is, so much practice time in college. In NBA, it's awesome because there's so many games, and you really kind of coach through the game and stuff like that. So, look, why he made that decision. Look, AJ and Darren are good players, but this guy Cooper Flagg's not a bad guy to get a chance to coach too. So I'm sure that had a lot to do with it.
Yeah, Kevin, after DeBonsa and Peterson, who from the Big 12 really shined in your eyes from almost a scout's lens as guys that you think are undervalued or going to be really, really good NBA players?
Yeah, I'm gonna go deeper cut here on you guys. I'm a big fan of Christian Anderson. I know he's not in like the necessarily the lottery like range on the mocks. I was always really impressed with his ability to just be like, he's just a very skilled basketball player. He can really dribble, pass, and shoot. His pick and roll reads are really, really good. His ability to shoot off the dribble, I think that's something people don't necessarily realize. That's not one thing I think where Darren is so good. Being able to shoot off the dribble is a skill that all the elite guards in the NBA have. You see a lot of drop coverage in the NBA, I know it's a little bit changing a little bit, but having the ability to come off screens and punish that with pull-up threes and stuff like that, I think Christian's phenomenal at that. So I'm excited to watch his growth. But look, man, that was one thing that was great about the Big 12 this year. There were so many guys night in, night out that were lottery level guys. I mean, Braden Burry's killed us. He's another guy that's super interesting. And not to disrespect any of the other guys, I go on and on about a lot of the guys in the Big 12, but Christian's a guy I think maybe a little bit under the radar.
Kev, how's your family? You've got 4 kids. Your fourth was born before the season last year, right? So how's everybody doing?
Yeah, no, thanks for asking. They're doing great, man. My two boys are excited for draft night to see where all their guys go, and then my daughters are great. The little one, Lily, is she's getting big, man. It's a fun time at the Young household.
That's awesome. Are your boys, are they hoopers?
Yeah, man. They're actually at BYU basketball camp this week, and doing football practice as well. So we love sports at our house.
Fantastic. Kevin Young, BYU's basketball coach. Good luck tonight. Congrats on the success you've had, especially in recruiting. Can't wait to hear AJ and Richie's names called tonight, man.
Thank you, guys, man. Looking forward to tonight, and we'll see you guys soon.
Take care. There's Kevin Young, Coach. BYU basketball coach, joining us here on Big 12 Radio. AJ DeBonsa, a guy that he just told us in a story he said he has not released, told publicly, but basically his recruiting pitch to AJ was, first pick, sure, but I'm talking about a 15, 20-year NBA career where you're multiple All-Stars and $100 million contracts.
Yeah, that was amazing. And he circled back to the daily habits, how much do you want to be a superstar in the NBA? And it's hard to judge a player's want to or character when it comes to sit down interviews. A lot of guys can kind of mask their way through it, but AJ checks all the boxes in terms of saying the right things and just his overall effort, especially on the defensive end of the floor. I also saw yesterday, like AJ Bonsa said, his number one regret was not winning more games in the NCAA tournament, not getting out of that first round. He said he's super embarrassed. He said it's one thing that he won't ever tell his kids. So that tells me like he's the ultimate competitor, right? And I love everything that Kevin Young speaks for, just his knowledge of what goes into the process. It is really cool to hear.
It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo. Matt Babcock, NBA draft analyst for Babcock Hoops, joins us next. It's Big 12 today as we continue previewing tonight's NBA draft, which should include the top 2 overall picks out of the Big 12 and perhaps 5 of the top 10. With James Westlake, I'm Ari Temkin. This is Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Fleming's got some space, and he throws it down. Wow! Kingston Fleming's explosive to the hole.
He's never seen anybody with this burst. Rebound, and it's Atwell. He steps through, and it's blocked away by Fleming. Just amazing, the athleticism at the rim. They're going to check it. I'm not so sure.
Neva LaRua returns from the bench. There's a dunk from Kingston Flemings. Oh, my. Woo. Boy, he threw that down quick.
Side, they didn't offer to help at all. Fleming's great pass, and Sanak dunks it home.
Keep it simple. Make the smart play.
Fleming.
That's not one of them.
Stolen away, 2-on-1. Sharp, step back 3.
Here, there's going to be a trap, and it's already been thrown, and the ball is not completed, and that leads to Emmanuel Sharp.
Fleming way downtown. Got it! Oh boy!
This is actually really good defense by Karchenkov.
Run, it's now a 10-point cushion. Burks. The iron downright rude to him. He's had 2 halfway down the cylinder and out.
Is that worse than unkind?
It is. Especially when that happens on the back end.
Now Fleming's recognizing there's a mismatch with Bowl and takes him and able to score that one over the top. Again, those mismatches are there all over the floor.
Flemings, he can create space for that fall away. And he does right away.
Absolutely magnificent.
And the ability to be able to deliver with either hand, impressive. He'll likely get plenty of practice doing that today as Fleming is on the lob inside to Chris Sanak.
Folks, watch as the basketball enters the paint. All of a sudden, Bobby Miller jumps up there and it opens up the backside. And what a beautiful read and pass by Kingston Flemings.
He's Ari. I'm James. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, powered by our good friends at Modelo. Justin Spears will be with us in just a bit from the Tucson Star and host of Spears and Ali, because today we dive into the consensus for spot number 7. We are slotting each and every Big 12 team, our consensus Big 12 Today preseason ballot, and we've gone all the way from 16 to number 8. We had Oklahoma State locked into 8th yesterday. We have TCU at number 9. Today we debate number 7. I've brought Utah back to the table, and Ari brings Arizona into the chat today. Modelo fan rule number 100, full-time fans don't clock out, they reload. And we saw that with a bunch of NBA teams selecting Big 12 players last night in the first round of the NBA draft. It's a power ranking Wednesday. Each and every Wednesday, we power rank on this program because.
Well, I don't know if we can call this a power ranking Wednesday. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's kind of a weak power ranking Wednesday. You know, we got to do a power rank and something random, and we didn't come up with something random today, so it's not a full-on power ranking Wednesday, James. You should know that.
It's like a half power rank?
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Okay, so
you got to either figure out the line or...
It's your thing. You own that line. Love the positivity. Good vibes only.
No positivity, no good vibes. Very upset about this. Butchering the segment, and I hate it.
Didn't notice. Power rankings today. Top 5 NBA draft picks from the Big 12 of the last decade. So we look at the last 10 years. We have our lists. T-Chains, why don't you have the floor? Walk us through the top 5 draft picks of the last decade in the NBA.
Number 5.
All right, number 5 for me, this is going to be a very interesting list. So this is going back to the 2016 draft.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure because this can be confusing. We're talking about a decade here.
Mm-hmm.
Number 5 for me is, well, I went back to the 2014 draft just because I added a little bit more padding because I wanted to include Marcus Smart, the guard for Oklahoma State, who was the 6th overall pick of the Boston Celtics in the 2014 draft. So Marcus Smart, I think a guy that as a top 10 pick, what he ended up becoming and what he was projected as, probably pretty close. You know, I figured when Smart was coming out, you could tell like the things that he was really good at, you know, all defense, you know, the heart he plays with, the passion he has. And he ended up becoming that. I mean, 3-time all defensive first team NBA, won the defensive player of the year in 2022, only the second point guard ever to win the award after Gary Payton. So I would say a pretty remarkable career for a guy that was drafted just outside last decade.
You know, when he was so good at Oklahoma State, but I didn't know that his game would translate to the NBA. If you had told me that he would play over 15 years in the league, I would have thought you had a third eye. Like, he couldn't shoot. He was not great offensively. He very much got drafted on his defense and, like you said, kind of having that dog in him. So I would say, like, if you look at his career arc, he blew away at least my expectations that I had for him. He became a really good pro.
Yeah, I would agree.
All right, so number 5 for me is a guy that's very green. But based off of what I saw in his rookie campaign, I go with VJ Edgecombe.
Ooh, I like it.
Top 3 pick by the Sixers out of Baylor, one and done at Baylor, 15 points per game for the Bears, Bahamian by birth. Nicknamed the Generator up in Philly, started all 75 games that he played. So I love the fact that he was out there on the floor playing in 75 of 82, scored more points in his rookie year than he did in his one season at Baylor. So that tells me that he has a super high ceiling. He led all rookies in scoring at 16 points second among all rookies in scoring. Almost 6 rebounds, over 4 assists. He did lead all rookies in steals. That's an aspect of his game that I think is very underrated. Had 34 points in his debut, all rookie first team. I think he is a future, in a very near future, star in the NBA. So I go with Edgecombe at number 5.
Yeah, I agree with you there. He has the chance to be number 1 on this list in the next few years.
Number 4.
This is going to be Desmond Bain for me. 2020 draft, 30th overall pick. Celtics drafted him and then traded him to Memphis. I would say just in terms of where they're drafted versus actual output, this has got to be it. He was the all NBA, all rookie second team, and the highest 3-point percentage in his rookie season since Steph Curry. And by his fourth season, he was averaging 23.7 points and 5.5 assists per game. Yeah, I mean, I would say Bain is a guy that is a huge surprise story out of the Big 12, playing at TCU and turning in a very successful NBA career so far.
Yeah, he was a baller and just joined TCU's staff. He's going to be an assistant coach for Jamie Dixon. So TCU with Bain on the bench, and they have the most returning production in the league. Like all of a sudden, TCU love what they're doing in the offseason.
So I think the Bain announcement is more of a it's funny because it was the same thing. The Colorado made the same announcement basically with Derek White. And they're saying we'll join their coach's staff, but I think it's the president of basketball strategy, and a lot of these teams have done the same thing. I don't think he's going to be on the bench, but he's still an NBA player. He's playing for Orlando. I mean, last year he played in 82 games. He averaged 20 points a game. So I can't imagine he's like a full assistant coach, more of like an NIL ambassador sort of role for him at TCU.
So he's not retiring to be on the bench in Fort Worth.
Yeah. When I read that at first, I was like, isn't he like not even 30 yet? And I mean, he's still a 20-point scorer in the NBA. Yeah. I mean, and the same thing with Derek White with Colorado. It's more of like a figurehead role, but also, I mean, think about it like this, right? I mean, Kevin Young, with his connections to the NBA, uses those in order to help recruit. Well, that's exactly what all these schools are trying to do here, is use NBA connections with guys that are reputable, have names, that are playing and contributing in the NBA in a meaningful way to be ambassadors for recruits that may be interested, to call them up. That kind of stuff is really what this is all about.
Yeah, and the first program to do that was Weber State with Damian Lillard.
Yeah.
Very much while he was in the league. All right. Number 4 for me is I wanted like a sleeper pick, a guy that was drafted late first round or second round. I look at your guy, Christian Braun, drafted 21st overall by the Nuggets. Just got a $125 million extension. Now, he played hurt most of this year, and his numbers took a little bit of a dip, but he has blown away any expectations that I had for him. Won a national championship in college, won the NBA title as a rookie, and was very much their spark off the bench. Signed a 5-year, $125 million extension that kicks in this season, but he only played in 40-some games this past year, averaged 12 points per game, but even in a down, injury-plagued season, to average double figures, very much a above-value pick. Christian Braun. We'll see if he lives up to that massive contract.
Number 3.
This is where I have Cade Cunningham, the first overall pick in the 2021 NBA draft. Look, he's just scratched the surface of his potential here. He's all NBA third team, averaged 26 points, 6 rebounds, and 9 assists per game in leading their Pistons to their first playoff berth since 2019. He was the first Oklahoma State Cowboy to make an NBA All-Star game since John Starks in 1994. I would say, why is he not higher? And he's probably higher in your list, or at least he's 3, because I think of the guys in front of him, they've just done more, and Cade Cunningham has a lot more room for growth. I think there's 2 guys in this list, VJ Edgecombe and Cade Cunningham, that I don't have VJ on my list because I included the 2014 NBA draft for some fakakta reason, but just because I wanted to. But, I mean, he's got a lot more basketball to play and should ascend this list, because he's, of all of the players on this list, the one with probably the most upside, him or VJ Edgecombe. But Cunningham's been phenomenal in the Pistons' resurgence. He's lived up to the billing. And when you think about the 2014 first overall pick and Andrew Wiggins, and just comparatively how much different those guys' careers have gone, Cunningham's the real deal. Wiggins is a phony.
Cunningham at 3, my first thought is I have clearly missed somebody on my board.
Remember, I didn't just do this decade. I went back to 2014 for some reason.
Okay, I like that tease. Okay, so number 3 for me is Keontae George. And to have 2 Baylor guys on this list, I think says a lot about all the talent that's been through that that program. I also think Cameron Carr is a steal at 25 or whatever he was taking last night. But Keontae George is 22 years old, and he just scored 23 a night this past season. He was taken 16th overall. Also, the exact same spot that Christian Anderson was drafted. In fact, no, Anderson was 18th last night. And I could see that type of career for Christian, albeit very different players stylistically. George is more physical, but all rookie second team in his first year, averaged 13 points as a rookie, 17 in year two, and then a career best 23 and 6 assists per game. He's also shot over 39% from beyond the three-point line in each of his first 3 seasons. So the Jazz, what they do with him, they hold a $6.5 million team option for this upcoming season, and the extension talks have kind of stalled. Maybe they're waiting to see what they get from Peterson, a budgetary thing, but like his scoring is the real deal. And we saw that in his 1 year at Baylor when he averaged almost 16.
So, okay, just taking stock of your list right now, you've got 2 guys from Baylor. You've got
Kansas.
That's it?
Yes.
3 guys. All right, so I've got 2 guys from Oklahoma State, a guy from TCU, and now I've got Tyrese Halliburton from Iowa State, number 2 for me. Sorry, Taman, go ahead.
Number 2.
Tyrese Halliburton, the guard from Iowa State, first-round pick, 12th overall to the Sacramento Kings in 2020. He was traded, I believe, after 1 season to the Indiana Pacers. He's a 2-time All-Star, 2-time All-NBA third-team selection, all-rookie first-team honoree, Olympic gold medalist. I mean, he has, I would say, far exceeded expectations. Beyond the, like, VJ Edgecombe, Cade Cunningham variety, he's probably the best on this list simply from the standpoint of being 12th overall pick to now being one of the best players in the NBA. Now, he's got to come back from a devastating injury he suffered during the playoffs a couple of years ago. And the Pacers were expecting to be picking in the top 5 of last night's draft, and they fell out of the first round entirely based on, what happened with the lottery. But, I mean, Tyrese Halliburton's been fantastic. I mean, he had a career-high 43 and 12 assists against Charlotte. He became the first player in Pacers history to put up at least 40 and 10 in a game. He posted a 33, 15, and 7 line against the 76ers, became just the 5th player in NBA history with 30, 15, and no turnovers in a single game, along with John Stockton, Chris Paul, LeBron James, and James Harden. He also then became the first player in NBA history with 25 points, 15-plus assists, and no turnovers in consecutive games since they started tracking that stuff back in the late 70s. So, in some ways, I'm sure the league forgot about Halliburton because he was out this year, but he'll remind them again next year.
Totally agree. I've got Cade Cunningham at number 2. And I know he was first overall, so he's supposed to be like this high on the list, but to live through a 28-game losing streak to first-team All-NBA in the face of the franchise that, even though they didn't make the finals, being the number 1 seed in the East, that turnaround spearheaded by 9.9 assists per game. He was second in the NBA in assists per game. And at Oklahoma State, he had to do everything. He had to score, he had to rebound, he had to be their top defender. So we didn't really see like that aspect of his game in college. That's where I think he's grown the most at the next level. Had a 46, 12, and 11 triple-double back in November. I've got Cade Cunningham at number 2.
Yeah.
And
number 1.
There it is.
All right, so the reason that I wanted to include the 2014 draft in this, despite it being, 12 years ago based on just the counting numbers.
Anthony Bennett?
No, that's the Andrew Wiggins draft.
Oh.
Was because the 2014 draft includes 3 drafts where the Big 12 had the number 1 overall pick, including Wiggins in 14, Cade Cunningham in 21, and, of course, this draft with Dabonsa at number 1. But my number 1 is actually Joel Embiid, who was the 3rd pick of the 2014 draft. It's funny because I think his injuries have in many ways defined his career, but yet despite that, like, he won an MVP. He's a 7-time All-Star, 5-time member of the All-NBA team, a 3-time member of the All-Defensive team. Watching Joel Embiid play in college, I mean, the growth he showed over the course of the 1 season that he played at Kansas was remarkable. And he's turned that into an unbelievable career. In fact, heading into the draft, I said publicly that I thought that Embiid would end up becoming the better pro than Wiggins, and that he should have been the number 1 overall pick. He was the rookie of the year. And then after sitting out, I think his first season due to injury. And I mean, in his career, he is averaging in his 10-year career 27.6 points per game, 1.6 blocks per game, and 11 rebounds per game. That is his career average numbers.
Nutty. And when he got hurt and had to sit out his rookie season, like, I was leaning, okay, this is more Greg Oden than Tim Duncan. When he's healthy, he's the best big man in the NBA. And KU missed him so much in the NCAA tournament. And he barely played in the non-conference. Like, he's a great story. Glad you brought him up. I've got Halliburton at number 1. More so, multi-year NBA All-Star, All-NBA, all the numbers. You led the Pacers to the finals last season. Like, everybody knows how talented he is. But I highlight him at number 1 because he played on really bad Iowa State teams. And his numbers, like his last year in Ames, 15 points, 6 assists, 6 rebounds, really good stat line, but it was on such a bad team, it was hard to identify, okay, is he doing all of this because Iowa State is so bad and somebody has to do it, right? Gets drafted 12th overall by the Kings, and the rest is history. He's been a stud. Power ranking the top 5 NBA draft picks from the Big 12 in the last decade. We dive into the consensus coming up next. We are trying to power rank each and every Big 12 team, put together our Big 12 Today ballot for the upcoming college football season. Justin Spears joins us from the Tucson Star and ESPN Tucson to highlight Arizona. That's after the break. We are powered by Modelo on TuneIn and Big 12 Studios.
Gets the rebound and fights Burley. Oh, my goodness. Oh! What a dunk from the freshman guard. That was big time. Here's the drive. Are you kidding me? Young legs on display.
To cut into that deficit now. Stolen away by Murray. 6 for number 5.
Here's that break, and you just can't go across court. Murray's freshman balling in on the rebounds. What a great pass that was. Golf got it, but it looked like it got picked down. Murray's catch and shoot. Got it! It's a 1-point game, and he's got 25.
Just enough room to catch and shoot it in rhythm. And not unexpected that they go to the freshman in that spot.
And punish Denver in the post. Johnson, the drive, that's knocked out of bounds. Wildcats, and Murray's sent it out.
Bradley knew he had it, just picked his pocket.
Nice pass.
Burries, that's tough guard to guard.
About that, all set up by defense. Big time pilfer, and then the dish too, resounding. Bang!
The CD game with the block. Look at him run too. Give it to him. Are up. The lob. Bang!
Burries knows exactly where it's going.
That is how you build a championship level team.
And that's another way you build a championship team, around a guy like number 5.
That's just a beautiful move, and if there are any NBA scouts in the house, that's what you want to see out of a next level player.
Allen handling here, whips it back, taken away, Burries. The freshman, the lob, and the throw down to Waka. Really good work with that hand manipulation, and then the lob. Point.
Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio. Justin Spears is with us, the football beat writer, all things Arizona for the Tucson Star and co-host of Spears and Ali on ESPN Tucson. With Ari Timken, I'm James Westling. The consensus today, we are power ranking, Justin, each and every Big 12 team 1 through 16 and trying to come to a Big 12 today consensus on each spot. We've got the 7th place opening today, and we're debating Arizona, among others, for that position. So we bring you on to talk football, but first, the NBA draft last night, just your take on Braden Burries going number 10, Koa Pete sliding all the way to 30, but he lands in his backyard in Phoenix.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool to see Braden go top 10 because, we've seen a lot of great players leave the Arizona basketball program. We've seen a lot of first-round picks, but only 15 in its program history can say that they've got the top 10 status. And one of those guys is Braden Burries. He's he's Arizona's first top 10 pick since Ben Mathurin in 2022. And, he's a great player. I thought that he was going to go maybe number 9 overall to the Dallas Mavericks. I love that fit alongside Cooper Flagg and Kyrie Irving and the other pieces that they have there. But he fell to 10, right to Milwaukee, or as I call the Milwaukee Heat, after making that crazy trade sending Giannis down to Miami. And I think that Braden Burries, his game is going to translate well to the NBA because he's a multi-level scorer. He can beat you in multiple ways. He can play both the 1 and the 2. But, I look at his career path. I'm not saying he's going to be the next Devin Booker, but I look at his skill set a little bit, and he kind of reminds me a little bit of Book. So I love the pick for Milwaukee at number 10. And then for Koa Pete, he slid all the way down to that very, very last pick of the first round, and it was starting to look like, oh, no, if he goes into the second round, the conversation today would be, did Koa Pete make the right decision by keeping his name in the NBA draft rather than coming back another season at Arizona, maybe even becoming a top 10 pick? But the Phoenix Suns, they traded into the first round. They had their eyes on Koa Pete, and I think it's a great opportunity for Koa because he is known as Mr. Arizona. This is a player who won 4 state titles with Perry High School up in Gilbert. He is one of the most decorated Arizona high school basketball players of all time. And then he leads the Arizona Wildcats to its first ever Final Four, or to its first Final Four in 25 years. And then he gets drafted by his hometown team in the Phoenix Suns. So I think this is a really cool thing for Mr. Arizona. Now, there's still lots of work left for Koa Pete. He still has to work on his outside shot, his offensive game a little bit. But I think staying home, playing with a really young team led by Devin Booker, I think is going to be a good deal for him.
Yeah, how surprised were you that Pete landed 30? Why do you think that happened for a guy that, with the way the season was going, especially at the start, looked to be, a top 10, top 15 pick type guy?
Well, I think his offensive game or his offensive flaws started to show as the season progressed. I thought that he was really good at breaking down zone defenses because he's not a bad mid-range shooter, but he's got to be more consistent. And when you look at his height and just kind of where he fits as an NBA player, you need to have that 3-point shot. Now, here's what bodes well for him. Because the offensive game not quite polished, and he showed that at the combine, right? I think he shot like 23% from 3 at the combine. And then at the Clutch Sports Pro Day that they had in Los Angeles, didn't have the best showing. So I think in the couple of showcases that he was at, I think not putting out his best stuff is what led to him falling. But, there is an example of a player kind of like Koa Pete, and that is Aaron Gordon. And when Aaron Gordon first got to the NBA, he wasn't necessarily an outside shooter. He was more known as a defensive guy, high-flying forward, and a really good rebounder. And Koa Pete's body type, he fits in the NBA. He's a good rebounder, decent defender, but his outside shot needs to develop. And Aaron Gordon, he didn't really develop that outside shot until he got to the Denver Nuggets. So there is a path for Koa Pete to be great in the NBA, and I think Aaron Gordon is kind of a similar model that he can follow.
Justin, you said you thought Braden Burries would have been a great fit with the Mavs at 9 paired with Kyrie. So that's playing off the ball. Is Burries definitely a 2 at the next level? And what do you think, I guess, held teams back or even the Mavs back from taking him at number 9?
Well, unfortunately for for Braden, there's just a lot of guards that are really good in this NBA draft class. So he went number 10 overall in a stacked class. If Braden comes back next year, maybe we're talking about Braden being a top 3 pick, right? Top 5 pick. So I think it was just that there's just so many good guards in this draft class. And then, I think as far as, what he's going to play, he definitely is more of a 2 guard. But, if you get into a situation where injuries happen, players get into foul trouble, you can move over to the 1, kind of like what we see with the Phoenix Suns with Devin Booker, right? Devin Booker is a natural 2 guard, but in this new era that he's in with Jordan Knott, we see a lot of times him playing point guard. So I think Braden Burries is definitely a combo guard, but definitely a 2 in my opinion.
All right, let's talk some football because this is the consensus, and I'm arguing today that Arizona is 7th in the Big 12, which probably seems low based on the fact they've got a quarterback who's, the most experienced returning starter in the league. And, it feels like they just scratched the surface of their potential after last year. An entire, coaching staff is back. They have the best coaching continuity in the conference. For me, it's the secondary. The secondary played a crucial role in the turnovers, which were a huge part of the success of Arizona last year. And, they did throw a lot of NIL dollars in the transfer portal at the problem, but I guess for me, I'm in a wait and see approach in terms of how it will work out. What are your thoughts on this team and maybe being 7th? Should they be higher?
I think, in my opinion, they should be a little bit higher, but I understand the argument, why you guys have them 7th because of, look at the firepower that they lose. We're talking about, 2 of some of the greatest defensive backs in the last quarter century in Treaton Stukes and Dalton Johnson, right? Those guys were all Big 12 selections. It's the first time that Arizona had 2 first-team all Big 12 selections in the secondary, or first-team all conference selections in the secondary since 1972. It's been that long. So Stukes and Dalton Johnson were fantastic. They were great leaders. I thought Genesis Smith, had a really solid season this past year at free safety. So you're losing those 3 guys, and the stat that just keeps boggling my mind is those 3 in particular played a combined 6,700 snaps, which is a lot of playing time that you're losing in the defensive secondary. But the coaches, they went out, they felt like Malcolm Hartzog from Nebraska was a really good addition. Dalen Austin from Oregon, another really good addition. These guys have Power 4 experience. And then they got some other guys that were playing at some smaller schools, but they have the experience that can really help out Arizona. So if there's anything that I've learned from this coaching staff under the Brent Brennan regime is that you don't doubt the talent that they are bringing in, because they had a couple of really good freshmen that stepped up last year, especially on the defensive line in Mace Pesse. And then the transfers as well. They hit on a lot of really good transfers. And these are kids that are not just coming in from Power 4 schools, but they're coming in from FCS. They're coming in from junior college. So this staff, they have a really good eye for talent. And so Brent Brennan, Danny Gonzalez, the defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator Seth Dagey, what those guys have done on the recruiting trail over the last couple of years is the reason why I don't doubt these guys. So yes, I totally understand why there are, some questions regarding this Arizona football team, especially in the secondary. But, they're returning 2 really good linebackers in Chase Kennedy and Tay Brown. They're returning a lot of players on the defensive line. They didn't really go after guys in the transfer portal on the D-line because they felt really confident with the guys that they have up front. And then you're bringing back a first-team all Big 12 quarterback in Noah Fafita, who, in my opinion, if we're doing kind of like a quarterback power ranking of the Big 12 quarterbacks, especially now that Brennan Sorsby is not playing this season, I think Noah Fafita is the best quarterback in the league. And I know some people have certain things to say about that, but, he's the first-team all Big 12 quarterback that's coming back. He's going to break every Arizona passing record when it's all said and done. And so when you factor in the camaraderie with a lot of talent coming back, with all 3 coordinators coming back, and you have Noah Fafita back under center, and then BYU week 2, very winnable game for Arizona, in my opinion. I think the Wildcats can sneak up on the Cougars and steal one. And then they've got a tough one on the road against Texas Tech on Halloween. Again, no Brennan Sorsby. I mean, there's some very winnable games for this Arizona football team. And, I'm not going to sit here and say that they're going to, win 9 games like they did last year. But honestly, I think there's a really good chance they might.
That BYU game, is that in Provo or is that in Tucson?
That's in Provo.
Okay.
Provo in September sounds very lovely. I will say that.
Right? You'll enjoy that one.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff. Justin Spears joining us here on Big 12 today. I know you got to go, Justin, man. Always great to catch up. We'll see you here in just a couple weeks at the Star for Media Days.
Anytime, guys. Thank you for your time.
All right, man. See you. Justin Spears, you see his backdrop, co-host of Spears and Ali on ESPN Tucson. Also covers the Wildcats for the Tucson Star, highlighting Arizona today for spot number 7. We look at Arizona. We look at Utah for the consensus. We are up to number 7. We are putting together our preseason poll here on Big 12 Radio, and we will dive in to the Wildcats and the Utes after this timeout. We are powered by Modelo, exclusively on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Rebound volley to Seacrest. 5 seconds left. Knocked away. It's Anderson. It's a 3. And it goes! Righteous! How about that for an exclamation? Number 4. That's a 3-point shot, but they may start making 4-point shots for him if he keeps doing that, Chris.
You see Bamboya right there, he alters it. It doesn't count as a block, but he's got McKaylee thinking about it.
Oh, Christian Anderson looked at Toppin, but the no-look pass inside to Bamboya. Shot clock running down. Does Anderson know it? Hits it! He had no choice but to put it up, and he knocks it down. Christian Anderson has ice water in his veins.
Anderson fires underneath, and the slam by Mosley. Larry off the bounce. Pass. Anderson rising up with 2 hands. Christian Anderson getting up plus the foul.
He has scored the last 14 points for Texas Tech. He's in his bag. Crossover, gets the man in the air, floats it up, and it bounces in. Have a half, Mr. Anderson. 25 points.
Get to his second, third option, step back, and then step through. And it's been that kind of afternoon. The touch on display. Anderson, wow.
No motion for me. No motion for me. No motion for me.
Well, the off season never means off. It means research from our good friends at Modelo, exclusively on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. This is Big 12 Today with Ari Timken. I'm James Westling, and we have reached the consensus portion of the program. So today, we are ranking each and every Big 12 team. We've gone from 16 all the way to number 8. So we're about halfway through. Today we are at spot number 7. We've got 2 teams that we try and dial in to that 7th place position in the Big 12. And I went back and looked at last year's standings in the league, right? Like, we are entering territory where 7th place in the Big 12 out of 16 teams is not a bad spot to be. 7th place last year in the league would have been 9-4, which is a pretty good year.
Who was 7th in the league last year?
TCU.
Yeah. And I think we've also reached a point in this segment where, you know, you and I have some, I would say, fairly large discrepancies here, probably between 4 and 7. And so, I mean, it'll be interesting to see kind of how we make these arguments for why which team should be where. Where do you have Arizona?
I have Arizona pretty close. I have Arizona 6th, I believe. And I have Utah 8th. Now, 8th last year would have been still a solid year, 8-4, right? Like, you've got Iowa State, TCU, Arizona State, Arizona. Like, all of those teams were super. And the last 2 years, out of 16 teams in the competitive balance, if we want to call it that, like, anywhere from basically 5 to 8, you're splitting hairs. So even though we're arguing 2 teams that, yeah, on paper, this would be a down year compared to what they were last year, but I think, like, big picture, I wouldn't necessarily classify it as a super down year if these 2 teams do finish 7th place in the Big 12, because I think the league collectively has potential to be much better.
Yeah, I would agree. And look, I think I have Utah 4th, so this will be very, very interesting.
Well, let's dive in. Tell us about Arizona, where they finished last season and how the season went for the Wildcats.
Yeah, I mean, last year was a overwhelming success. It was a building block year, if you will, which sets up for this year, where they are very much, I would say, in the conversation, maybe as a dark horse to be a Big 12 title contender. They went 9-4, 6-3 in the Big 12. They finished the month of November, very unlike Brendan Sorsby in Cincinnati, with a 5-game winning streak, which included wins over the aforementioned Cincinnati and Arizona State. I mean, they laid the wood to Arizona State in the Territorial Cup in a game in which both teams were 8-3 and ranked in the college football playoff rankings. So it was a significant win for Arizona, obviously, beating your rival who won the league a few years ago. And it ends the first 5-0 November month in program history.
And for Utah, last year was a banner year. I felt like Utah should have been in the college football playoff. There just weren't enough spots for the Utes, with BYU and Utah missing out. But their 2 losses, they were right there in both games. Devin Dampier was beat up in the Texas Tech game. The Utah game against BYU went right down to the wire. So they were really close to having an undefeated season, maybe even closer than BYU was, considering how their games went against Texas Tech. But that was Kyle Whittingham's last year in Salt Lake City. You know the story, coach in waiting, Morgan Scalley. What has changed most for Arizona as you dive in?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. These are 2 completely different teams in terms of not much. So I'm going to start off with what didn't change, and that would be the coaching staff. They have 0 staff turnover, Arizona, the single biggest what changed non-event in the conference. Every Arizona position coach and coordinator in 2026 was on the 2025 staff, and Brennan, Dagey, and Gonzalez all received contract extensions. What did change, though, would be the 28 turnovers. Arizona forced 28 turnovers. It was their most since the year 2000, when they had a dominant defense, and they were called the Desert Swarm. But they lost those guys. 3 of them, Trey Dan Stukes, Dalton Johnson, Genesis Smith, all off to the NFL. And then their starting cornerbacks, Michael Dansby and Aiden Garnes, also left via the transfer portal. They also lost safety Jack Luttrell and cornerback Marquise Groves Killebrew. So pretty much the entire secondary is brand new.
For Utah, A lot has changed. To your point, total opposite. Complete overhaul when it comes to the coaching staff. Now you've got a head coach in waiting in Morgan Scalley, who's been on staff for 19 years. You promote from within for your defensive coordinator position, but you lose your OC. You hire the guy, Kevin McGiven from Utah State. Jordan Gross, who's never coached in college, comes in to coach the offensive line. But also, like, defensively, what's changed the most for me is in the trenches. 5 new starters on the offensive line. Defensively, this team lost a ton. John Henry Daly follows Whittingham to Michigan. Smith Snowden in the secondary. Logan Fano off to the NFL. But they also lose their top 3 defensive tackles. One of them followed Witt to Michigan. The other transferred to Penn State and will play for Matt Campbell. And the third guy graduated. So the deeper I looked at their defense, they also lost Tal Johnson, a starting safety, to UCLA. They got hit pretty hard in the portal and to graduation at the line of scrimmage. All right, roster construction grade for Arizona.
I give them a B. You know, it wasn't a secret what their issue was going to be, and they threw a lot of options at it. I mean, 7 transfer defensive backs. I think this team in some ways is more talented at the top, but doesn't have as much depth as the 2025 squad. And, you know, again, like, for me, it's pretty simple here. Like, there's a lot of reasons for optimism on Arizona, but the one reason for pessimism is the fact that their defense lived on turnovers. They had a elite secondary, and it's proven by the NFL draft. And I just don't know that you can replace those guys via the portal. But I mean, the skill positions on offense actually improved on paper. They add Rodney Gallagher, they add Ross and Jordan. They also, Gio Richardson's a guy that had a fantastic cap after putting together a nice freshman season. They also, by the way, bring in one of the top recruiting classes, the 35th national recruiting class with 6 4-stars, including wide receiver RJ Mosley. So, and then, yeah, I mean, we talked a ton about Malcolm Hartzog and Cam Chappa, Lee Millette, Tyrese Boss. I mean, they did work in the portal and added a lot of talent. I think, again, their top end talent is probably better than it was last year, but I think their overall depth from top to bottom is not as good.
Yeah, depth will definitely be tested. They brought in so many defensive backs. It's like if they can hit on almost half of those guys, like the way they run that secondary and that defense, they could be okay. But again, it's still a wait and see approach to your point. For Utah, I think I gave them around a B. Like, they had a really nice high school recruiting class, and they retained Devin Dampier as the headliner and running back Wayshawn Parker. Those are 2 must-have retention pieces. But the on-3 composite, like, net transfer portal rankings, guys out versus guys in, they're 14th in the Big 12 out of 16 teams. They lost a ton of talent, and the guys they brought in, I don't know that are ready to play at that level. So I'd give them. They also lost their top tight end. That's the other thing I was going to add. All 5 offensive linemen, and then their top tight end to the NFL draft. So it's a complete overhaul outside of like 2 positions on offense. What is Arizona's hinge point? The one thing that has to go right?
No secret here. It's their secondary. For this team to be a legit contender and not be in this 7th talk, the new defensive backfield has to be good. I mean, it has to be probably pretty close to what it was last year. Look, their linebackers, I think, will help. Tay Brown is back. We've talked about that this offseason. 80 tackles, 8.5 tackles for loss in 25. So I think that, it helps when the unit in front of you, the linebacking spot is, has that depth and has the returning players. But again, the secondary became, just a turnover machine, and what that did for their offense was a huge boost. So it's the one thing that has to go right is they have to get the secondary right. I don't think they have to generate 28 turnovers like last year, but they can't fall off a ledge.
And turnover regression is one major concern I have for Arizona and Kansas State, 2 teams that the public is very high on. They had like sky high turnover numbers last year in terms of margin, takeaways. A lot of times in the next season, that kind of balances out, right? The hinge point for Utah. So I highlighted yesterday the offensive line, but specifically, I'm worried about their left tackle position, and that's the guy that's going to be protecting Devin Dampier's blind side. Spencer Fano, who locked down that position for the last 4 years, is off to the NFL top 10 pick. Your left tackle is either going to be a true freshman in Kelvin Obot, who I know they're really high on, 5-star kid, highest rated recruit in program history, but he's still 18 years old. Right. And if it's not him, it's going to be a guy that was a backup last year and played 156 total snaps and didn't play organized football until his senior year of high school. He didn't play football for 5 years to focus on basketball. He played it like a little bit growing up, but he's 6'8", so he wanted to be a power forward. Well, now he's 305 pounds and expected to be the starting left tackle on paper if it's not the true freshman that beats him out in camp. Mm. All right, the one thing that could derail Arizona.
I think the offensive line, right tackle Tristan Bounds is recovering from a knee injury, so he wasn't a full spring participant. And remember, last year Arizona, despite 9 wins, was 104th nationally in sacks allowed. And they've got a 5'10", 190-pound quarterback. So on top of that, the final stretch includes Texas Tech, TCU, and Utah. So if this line breaks down protecting Fafita, that could be a huge issue. Obviously, an injuring Fafita, heaven forbid. But I think it's a legit question, again, considering last year they were 104th in sacks allowed.
Yeah, with Utah, as dominant as they have been defensively, there's one glaring issue. They still gave up a ton of yards on the ground last season, and they break in 3 new starters on the defensive line. Now they've got Holtzclaw back, who is their highest graded, like Pro Football Focus, returner on the entire defense. But then your defensive tackle, which has always been like an anchor position for Utah, you've got a guy that was a backup last year, played in 12 games and had 13 tackles. And then the other defensive tackle was also a backup and didn't play organized football until his junior year of high school. Had 18 tackles his senior year of high school. But Utah loved his raw athleticism. He played in 137 snaps last season and had 13 stops. So they're very green defensively on the defensive line. Ethan Day was like their number 1 portal addition. Defensively, comes over from North Texas, had 50 tackles and 7 TFLs. He was on a really good North Texas team. But before that, he was at Wyoming. He was at Modesto Junior College. He chose Utah over Wisconsin. So, there were some big-name schools after him, but 24/7 Sports has him as a 3-star portal rating. He's not like an elite portal addition. So, the rushing defense is a major red flag to me that could potentially derail the Utes. This is the consensus. We bring Arizona and Utah to the table. We'll try to lock in who is our preseason 7th-ranked team in the Big 12 Conference coming up next as we continue along on a Wheels Off Wednesday. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio.
Waco, we got a 3-point game early on second half. Carr! Oh! Count a body!
He drives the closeout, and oh my goodness. Air Carr taking off. Look at how far he cocks the ball back. That's insane.
Torrey turning the corner.
Take a look at this, because I love the aggression from Torrey, but I also love what Cam Carr does. Protect the rim at a high level. Guard on guard action. I love it right there.
Soccer and of course, Big 12 basketball. Check this out. Whoa.
That's just all the way through traffic right there. Look at that right there. I thought he was going to go high off glass. No, I got the length. I've got the size.
Skilling's big night. He's in double figures. Now 4 Baylor players double figures scoring. Carr levitates and scores.
Gets out in transition. A lot of guys, you see shy away from the contact. He goes through the chest, plays through contact. The second finish that we've seen tonight by Cam Carr, where he is seeking out the contact.
been a trying season for Bobby Hurley in year 11, and with questions about his future in Arizona State. Carr in transition, clear for takeoff.
And in transition, one-on-one, if you do not stop him, he can take off a flight. That's just a massive dunk right there.
Carr has it. He's got some numbers here. Carr wants to take it to the rim, just kind of flips it up, and somehow it goes in.
And coast to coast takes the contact there from Jones, wondering why it's not a foul. Then just able to use his athleticism, that balance, get all the way up on the other side and flip that in with his offhand.
Senior out of Waco, and now steal. Agben takes it away, up ahead. Oh my! Cameron Carr with the thunder. Look at this one.
Checked it by Ratai. Yesufu. And Carr drops the hammer.
This is a tomahawk in traffic. I mean, that's just not a small guy that he just dunked over. Reared back.
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, The Consensus, the series that we're working on is our next project here on Big 12 today. We have ranked each and every team from 16 to number 7 is where we sit today. T-Chains, can you give us an update on who we have locked into what spots so far?
Yeah, we have Oklahoma State at 8, TCU at 9, Colorado at 10, West Virginia at 11, Baylor at 12, UCF at 13, Kansas at 14, Iowa State at 15, and Cincinnati at 16.
And as we noted, we are getting into the meat of the league. Sorry, go ahead.
So still Arizona, Arizona State, Kansas State, Utah, Houston, Texas Tech, and BYU left.
Correct.
Can't wait to see where you have the Kansas State Wildcats.
If you're paying attention to the order I just read them in, I gave you my order.
Come on, Ari. You know my brain can't work that fast.
Keep up, Simple James.
Pretty sure I heard Kansas State at number 3. Feels right.
Feels too
All
low.
right. A little too low. Okay. I'm here for that. Let's not set the preseason expectations too lofty, though. I see what you're doing here. This is some major gamesmanship, some reverse psychology. All right, K-State college football play. You're don't put them on a pedestal. All right, we're a sleeper team.
Maybe the greatest team in the history of college football. too lofty, or is that, do you feel like, fair?
No, that sounds about right. Sounds about right to me.
I would be disappointed if Avery Johnson did not win the Heisman this year. Wouldn't you?
Who wouldn't be? Okay. He's Michael Vick 2.0.
Yeah. I mean, except faster.
Yeah, exactly. Faster, more electric, better commercials, all of it. Better car, that's for sure.
No dogs, totally.
Ooh. All right. So build the case, convince me that Arizona should be number 7, which again, like number 7 last year was a 9-4 football team, and Iowa State was right behind them at 8-4, and they could have been a 9-4 team if they had played in a bowl game. So like this isn't a bad spot to be.
Yeah, I mean, the case for me is pretty cut and dried. Despite what they have back on offense, I don't know that they can replicate what they did on defense, and that's my concern, and probably why I don't have them any higher than this. Is just based on that and that alone, that I'm just not confident that what they've had to rebuild in their secondary will be able to be rebuilt fast enough. And remember, I mean, you just mentioned this. I mean, if they get to the 9-win plateau they hit last year, that could be 7th in the league. So 7th might sound kind of crazy, but it's close to where they finished last year, and I think their defense is not going to be as good. And on top of that, I mean, here's their closing schedule. At Texas Tech versus TCU versus Utah, at K-State versus Arizona State. That's a brutal finish.
And that, the schedule piece, is where I might, maybe, concede. I want to see if Taman goes with my team just once during this exercise.
Oh, it's been a good stretch because I'm very convincing. Okay, but when this thing started, the bottom, I've got a lot of crossed off my list at the bottom here because of Taman taking your side of it.
Hit list: Taman 1, James 2.
And that's a risk I'm willing to take because I'm on Ari's side here.
Yes.
Already?
Yeah.
Bro, I'm not done.
I think you've made compelling arguments, don't get me wrong, but I just think Utah, to summarize your argument, James, you're saying Utah should be ranked this low because Kyle Whittingham is gone, the O-line is not the same, and you don't really trust Morgan Scalley's new replacement at D coordinator.
You forgot about the defensive line. You forgot about the secondary. You forgot about how do you even watch football? Do you even watch football?
I do, but I think Ari's argument is a lot more understandable. They lost 3 guys to the NFL on their secondary. That's huge.
And they lost 2 the year before and still were like top 3 in the country in turnover margin.
Mm-hmm. And how they do. Arizona's offense will carry them, but they have some questions on defense that you have to ask. Utah, they have Devin Dampier coming back. Their O-line, I think, will be okay. I don't think Devin Dampier and Burt Ficklin both come back without not having some reassurance on their offensive line. I don't think so.
Or a big fat blank check.
That's fine.
All right. Whatever. How do we feel about the coach in waiting scenario at Utah? So I went and looked at like coach in waiting elsewhere. It really hasn't been done in a little bit. But in the modern era, it's worked at a couple of places. Okay, at Wisconsin, Barry Alvarez handed the baton to Brett Bielema back in 2006. Bielema won 17 of his first 18 games, 68-24, a couple of Big Ten titles before he left after an 8-5 campaign. At Florida State, was Jimbo Fisher a head coach in waiting with Bobby Bowden? He won the national championship back in 2013 before he kind of fizzled out. But there's a lot more failures, okay? Kentucky did it back in 2010. Rich Brooks to Joker Phillips, who went 12-23. Purdue did it with Joe Tiller, the legend there, and then Danny Hope went 22-27. Texas with Mac Brown, right?
That's one I would think. Will Muschamp was the head coach in waiting as the defensive coordinator under Mac Brown, and well, he ended up becoming the head coach of Florida, and basically spent a decade as a head coach in different programs in the SEC unsuccessfully. Is that fair?
Very.
And now he's back at Texas as the defensive coordinator.
He's the Jerome Tang of college football. Tang back at Baylor, Muschamp back at Texas. So the head coach in waiting, are you here for it, or are there any concerns about the transition with Utah?
Well, the transitional concerns for Utah have already happened insofar as the coach that you've transitioned away from wasn't ready to be transitioned away from. And so in light of that, you made the decision to move on and move to Morgan Scalley. And with that, you lost a lot of your staff and you lost many players that wanted to follow Whittingham and go to Michigan. So I believe in Morgan Scalley. I mean, I think you're right to question it. It is a legitimate question. I mean, this is a new head coach situation. But Utah, this is a multi-decade thing here. This is not new, and it feels like this program, is bigger than just Kyle Whittingham, and so that's where I think just so much of the program, the foundational stuff, is still there, and that's why I'm buying what they're selling.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's talk ceiling and floor. We touched on this yesterday. The thing about, I brought up the schedule because Utah has a very light schedule. Like Arizona could end up being the better team. Utah could end up with the better record because of their schedule. So what is best case and worst case scenario for Arizona?
I mean, best case is, 10, 11 wins and they're competing for Arlington. You've got, the most proven, most decorated returning quarterback in the Big 12. He started 34 straight games. He owns at this point every meaningful Arizona passing record and is now playing for the next step in his career, which is a championship. He burst on the scene as a freshman, didn't leave when Jedd Fisch bolted after his freshman season. Had a really poor sophomore campaign under Brent Brennan, responded with a tremendous season last year. Now the next step is, for him to get himself potentially on NFL radars despite his size. So I think that's the best case scenario here. And then, the question we've had about their secondary, that the linebackers help in the transition to this new secondary, and then over the course of the season, the secondary is able to hold up. I think if that's the recipe, that's the blueprint for Arizona to get 10, 11 wins and get to Arlington.
What about worst case?
I mean, I think worst case scenario, this is still a bowl team. This offense should be extremely explosive, regardless of the defense, which could, take some lumps. Again, if they don't turn teams over, the defense could struggle. But I still think, your floor is probably a bowl game, given that you've got no Fafita returning. We just mentioned the success he's had, what they added in the wide receiver room, the running backs that are back. The offensive line's a legit question mark, but I think beyond that, like they showed last year that they could be an explosive offense, even with the offensive line that can't protect Fafita that well. So I think their ceiling's 10, 11 wins. I think their floor is 6, 7 wins.
And I would say Utah very similar. 6, 7.
Yep.
Utah's schedule is light. Okay, they open Big 12 play with a road game, but it's at Iowa State, who's breaking in a new coach and a new roster, and that game's in September. And then they have a bye week to get rested up for Kansas, at Colorado. They get Houston and BYU at home. So, the ceiling for Utah, I think, is 10 or 11 wins, right? The floor, even if the bottom drops out, it's probably still 6 because of the schedule. They're not losing anything in the non-conference with Idaho, Utah State at home, Battle of the Brothers, and Arkansas at home. But Taman, I need to point something out. Utah, with a complete overhaul defensively on the defensive line, they were already not that good at stopping the run last year. They play at Iowa State, run first coach. They play Houston, run first offense. They play Cincinnati, maybe the best offensive line in the Big 12. They play BYU, LJ Martin, all Big 12. He's a dude, reigning Big 12 player of the year. They play some teams on their schedule that are going to ground and pound T-Chains.
All right, just real quick here. You also mentioned Kansas, which is probably a run first offense, 200 Andy Kolnicki, but I'll
Thank you.
Taman, this is a tougher schedule here. Iowa State, Kansas, Colorado, Houston, Cincinnati, BYU, Arizona, TCU, or West Virginia, or Cincinnati, West Virginia, Iowa State, Texas Tech, TCU, Utah, K-State, and Arizona State. They basically, and BYU, they basically have the same schedule. The only difference is that instead of playing Kansas and Colorado and Cincinnati, no, they do have Cincinnati. They play Kansas State instead of Kansas. They play Arizona State. Utah plays Colorado. I mean, that's two huge discrepancies there.
Yeah, I would agree. And Ari, I know they have a similar schedule, but didn't you mention also that a lot of that tough schedule for Arizona is towards the end of their schedule?
Correct. At Texas Tech, this is how to close out the season in November. At Texas Tech, TCU, Utah, at K-State, and Arizona State to close out the year.
That's brutal.
Brutal.
Weak. All right. So the consensus is we're locking in Arizona at number 7.
We are locking in Arizona at number 7. Sorry.
Listen,
sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, not sorry. Listen, James. You can have, if Utah has a really down year this year, we'll give it to you. We'll give it to you. We'll give you the credit, okay?
Thank you.
And
That's the thing.
If they don't, we'll just forget that it ever was even talked about.
I'm keeping receipts.
Keep receipts unless it obviously goes against, unless Utah does have a really good year, and then at that point you don't need to keep any receipts.
Taman, I need to remind you, 2 years ago, Ari was like 70 games below 500 on our weekly pick'em segment. So
2 years ago, what happened last year? You bring it
tied
here to make me look bad.
We tied.
I was gonna say, if I wasn't here for it, then it didn't happen.
It's true.
God, I can't wait for that segment.
He had a different producer. He had all things all messed up. I blame Brian, honestly, for my horrible showing in Pick'em a couple of years ago.
I mean, he got in your head. You crumbled on the 16th hole at the U.S. Open.
Yep, that's exactly right.
All right, we've got Brian Roth coming up next, college basketball. He is the guy. We'll talk some draft, a little bit of retention for some of these Big 12 schools. We lock in Arizona at spot number 7 for our preseason Big 12 Today poll. This is Big 12 Radio. We are powered by Modelo on TuneIn and Big 12 Studios.
Another pass underneath by Clemens. Sinek with the slam. It's 22-2. That your team is going to come out, that your opponent's going to start 1 of 6 shooting. They're going to have 4 turnovers. You're going to be able to...
He's shooting 70% from the field. They need him.
What a block. Sinek.
And showing out. Dribble drive on that baseline. This thing just gets potatoed on the backboard, and now you're off to the races. What a block by Sinek.
Samson players with a 20-plus usage rate of anybody. And then you got another freshman in Sinek.
There it is. You draw the defense. If this guy is going to continue to hit shots like this,
Continuing to work on his three-point shot.
Boy, nobody getting in front of Uzan. Chris Sinek Jr. with another rebound, especially another offensive rebound. He's got 14 rebounds on the game.
Michael Rataj was stopped. Sinek sent it back.
Houston, you're probably going to get the ball put right back in your face. The Bears.
Now they penetrate inside. Uzan. Sinek. Now he's starting to turn up the heat. Chris Sinek Jr. has arrived in Vegas.
Right here. It takes one to go in for you to then understand that your impact isn't just them throwing the basketball. If you don't get it, go get it off the glass. And he did just that with Tugler out. They need this energy.
Houston, and Sinek had the most with 12. Oh, what a great execution. Meanwhile, the execution coming right out of this possession. Just great move.
Holding just 29% from deep on the year. This man can shoot the 3. Sharp just 1 bucket in the first half. Sinek the follow.
Back inside Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio, heard exclusively on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. NBA Draft Round 1 last night. Big 12 with a record-setting night. 9 selections in the first round. The second round is tonight, and to break it all down, Brian Roth from Basket Under Review joins us here on Big 12 Radio. Brian, we were just talking during the break about some Big 12 guys that maybe could have been selected a little bit higher that some teams, frankly, missed on, like Christian Anderson, I thought could have gone higher. Cameron Carr's another one that is a steal with Koa Pete going 30th overall. So, like, of those big three, who do you think is going to, I guess, have a better career than where they got taken?
Christian Anderson's the one for me, as long as he gets the opportunity, right? Going to Charlotte, I think, is great for him because he will play backup point guard for LaMelo Ball, and LaMelo Ball has not been able to stay healthy. So there's the opportunity there for Anderson, I think, to have a bigger role. I know the physical profile of Christian Anderson is not massive or somebody that screams NBA star, but from a production standpoint, he's been incredible. He can create off the bounce. He can create his own shot. He is one of the very best playmakers in this draft. I think you could argue he's the best playmaker in this draft. And so you have a guy who can do both those things, spot up, shoot as well. Like, can play on and off the ball. The defense is going to be a bit of a question because he's not going to probably not have the ball as much as he did at Texas Tech. He's going to have to share the ball a little bit more and not be as ball dominant. But if he's able to play a role, or even if he's just leading a second unit, I think he's somebody who can become one of the better second unit point guards in the NBA much sooner rather than later.
How surprised were you, or were you not, at AJ DeBonsa 1 and Darren Peterson 2?
Not surprised at all. I know we hit a point after they faced at Allen Fieldhouse where it was like, oh, Peterson's clearly the number one guy from there. But everything that happened since then all pointed to Bonsa's way, right? From the continued health issues that Peterson was going through, Richie Saunders had the injury for BYU, and DeBonsa really stepped his game up. You had all the athletic testing as well and the physical profile that we saw at the combine. I think DeBonsa is a much safer pick. And when you can have a safer pick with what I consider to be equal to potentially slightly more upside, just because he's 3-4 inches taller than Peterson, right? He's longer. He's got better defensive upside. He's got a little bit more playmaking chops than Peterson at least showed in his 1 year at Kansas. If you can take the safer prospect who may have the higher floor as well, I think that's an easy decision.
So, Brian, with what you said about Christian Anderson's physical profile, is it just that he's too thin, or like he's 6'3", right? So what do you think scared teams away there?
The fact he is not a 6'5", 6'6", 6'7" guy, because he is not somebody who, at least where he was getting drafted, he's not coming in there to run your team from the start, right? The Darius Acuffs, the Michael Browns, the guys who were picked in the top 8, those are the guys who are going to be given the keys to their teams. I think Anderson can do a better job with the keys to the offense than some of those guys who went above him, but he's not in that position now. And so if you're not going to be in that position, it becomes, okay, you're going to have to play some without the ball. And there's really no place in the NBA anymore for small guards who play without the ball, unless you are like a Josh Hart type who does all the other extra things and plays much bigger than he is. And Christian Anderson, I think, he's not Josh Hart. He could show a little bit more rebounding than he did in college, but the role was just a little bit different, right? And trying to juxtapose his role in college to what his role is probably going to be in the NBA, that's where some of the size comes into play, because he has the size to play the role he played in college in the NBA. But he's probably not going to be able to play that role in the NBA, I would think.
Brian, which Big 12 player that was drafted last night is your best favorite fit?
Christian Anderson's up there, but I'll skip it a little bit from there. Honestly, it's DeBonsa. And I know that's a bit of a cop-out with him going 1, but the Wizards have set themselves up in this really unique position where they have some guys who are there to win now, Trae Young and Anthony Davis, who you think, they expect to be on a playoff contender. Maybe not a title contender, but a team that can play in the playoffs, right? And the Wizards have spent the last couple of years building a young core to meet that same kind of timeline, right? And DeBonsa is the perfect mix of both, where he's obviously, the youngest guy on the team now, one of the youngest guys on the team at 19. But he is at a level where he's going to come in and he's going to be able to average 20 a game in the NBA without an issue. I don't think. Like, he has that kind of skill set. So you have somebody who can elevate the win now portion while also fitting the future timeline of your franchise in the core there. Plus, they needed a guy in the wing who can do exactly what Debonsa does. I think it was as much we talk about the no-brainer between him and Peterson. I think it's a no-brainer for Washington as well because of what he brings to the table.
And Peterson, he did finally meet with Utah right before the draft and kind of conceded that, yeah, I'll play for the Jazz and I'll do it to the best of my ability. How about that fit?
Utah's in a tough position right now. And I think anybody going to Utah is a tough position right now because they tried the whole win now or build a contender around Lauri Markkanen, which very clearly did not work, but they gave him a contract that was not going to be tradable, really, and hasn't been. And they've done an okay job kind of building some pieces around a young core that they've tried to develop. But, what's Keontae George's ceiling look like in the NBA? What does Ace Bailey's ceiling look like in the NBA? Like, there's still a lot of questions about how impactful those guys can be. Peterson, I think, comes in and is, the best player of that young core right away. The question then becomes, okay, well, what's around him to keep them from toiling in the bottom of this incredibly strong Western Conference that just continues to get stronger for the next 4 or 5 years? And I don't know if that's around Peterson there's no signs around Peterson for them to be able to elevate out of that basement.
I'm curious for what the first round of the draft told you about NBA thinking. Is there sort of any overall like overarching theme that you think like NBA teams are doing this, or do you think it's not that simplistic?
There's the obvious. I think the obvious thing is the emphasis on youth, which is not a new thing, where you're going to value the freshmen over you're going to value the experienced guys. But we saw, and I think Alan Graves going 19 is a bit of a sign to this. We saw a little bit more value on the production and not as much worry about age as opposed to age over everything else. We've seen plenty of teams the last 8 years or so make mistakes because they valued age over everything else and upside potential over everything else. And that they missed on Desmond Baines. They missed on guys like that who were just productive, consistent, very good players who you knew they were going to play a role. You knew they were going to be stars, but suddenly, entered the league and played that role at a very high level right away. I think teams are starting to see some more value in that. You're still swinging for the upside and the youth at the top of the draft, but guys like Ade Mara, Jackson Lindenborg, Morris Johnson, not freshmen. Jackson Lindenborg obviously being 23, and they're all very, very good. But you can even go down the list: Dalen Swain, Bennett Sturts, Christian Anderson, guys who went in the top half, top 20 of this draft that spent multiple years in college were taken over some of the more higher upside younger guys.
Brian Roth is our guest here on Big 12 today. From Basket Under Review, has a massive social media following, so check him out there. Last night's draft, all 20 picks, the first 20 picks, all came from college basketball. No international players until 21. That was the first time that's happened since 1994. So what does that say about, I know it's a super deep draft, but the impact that could have on college basketball as a whole for next season?
I think a couple of factors play into that. One is that this was the strongest freshman class we've ever seen. And I think maybe we'll ever see again. Like, this was a generational kind of class. And so you're capitalizing on that. It's also coinciding with the fact that these top international guys are starting to come to college, right? Hannes Steinbach, who went to the Hornets at 14, would have been an international selection had he not come over to college, right? Even Ade Mara started his career over in Europe before he spent a couple of years in college. He would have been an international prospect, but instead you get him from Michigan, right? So I think that's a factor as well. The strength of the class and the strength of the freshman class is a factor as well. The next couple of years, particularly 2027, 2028, what projects to be the next 2 years, the freshman classes and the younger parts of those classes are not expected to be as strong. And typically when they're not as strong, high school classes are not as strong American classes. Obviously, you'll see teams prefer to reach for an international prospect with the proven pro experience in his background over the college kids. We may see more of this happen in the next couple of years, but I do think that this was a unique one-off kind of year where you had the combination of the incredibly strong freshman class with the international influx of talent into college basketball.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm interested too in your thoughts on Dusty May. Taking Mavs job. Obviously, I'm sure there are a lot of coaches that have a similar sentiment in terms of just kind of fed up with the state of college basketball. Give us your kind of thoughts and opinion on Dusty May leaving Michigan after winning the national title to go to the Mavs.
Yeah, I mean, he accomplished everything there is to accomplish in college other than winning, back-to-back national championships, which is a very hard thing to do, and there's no guarantee, that's going to happen. We know he's an incredible basketball mind, and he is somebody who doesn't shy away from challenges and wants to be challenged. He also loves basketball. And the college aspect of coaching has always been about a little bit more than just coaching. There's managing the players on your roster, there's the fundraising aspect, and all of those other things have obviously amplified the last 5-6 years since NIL was introduced. The bigger issue, I think, and the only thing that this is truly an indictment on, is having to re-recruit your own roster every single season. And we talk about the professionalization of college sports and the fact that may, be more appealing to pro coaches coming down a level to college, and maybe keep some college coaches from moving up because it's kind of the same. There's contracts in the NBA. Kind of what things are going to look like, and the number of players or who you have to worry about leaving, right? It is not re-recruiting your own roster every year, along with scouring who might be in the portal, along with scouring who might be coming in the freshman class this season. There's a lot more unknowns and a lot more that goes into each and every roster build in college than there is in the NBA. And that's the one aspect that I think is unsustainable. The other stuff is part of being a college coach, and the coaches are fine with that. But the constantly and consistently having to recruit all 15 guys on your roster and re-recruit all 15 guys on your roster is the part that's, I think, wearing down a lot of coaches and wore down Dusty May.
Brian, have you been following the NCAA eligibility ruling that passed the 5-5? Break it down for us and what it could mean for college sports.
Yeah, I think the most plain language of it is that red shirts are done, and you have a 5-year window to compete in college sports. The 5-year window for you as a player, as a prospect, starts when you enroll in college or the year after the academic year you turn 19. And so each person is going to have their own 5-year clock, and when that starts, there's no general consensus. But those are the 5-year clocks. And then from that starting point, you have 5 academic years to play 5 years of college sports. If you enroll in college when you were 22, if you're one of these international guys who come in, that your clock would have technically started, I guess, 2 or 3 years before then, based on when your birthday is. So you can still come to college, then you only have 3 years of eligibility. You're not getting these guys who play 5-6 years in EuroLeague, 24 years old, coming over and like, oh, you still get 3 years of college here. That's not the way it's going to work anymore. That's kind of what this was built to battle against and make things a little bit more clear. You have just a traditional sense, right? You graduate high school at 18, you go to college, you enroll in college at 18, you can play until you're 23, the 5 years after that, and then you're done. There's no court cases. There's no red shirts that can extend it, no medical red shirts. There are the exemptions for military service, religious missions and things like that. And there's one more that's escaping me right now. So there are a couple exemptions, but there's no, hey, I didn't play this year, so I get the extra year tacked on to it. It's designed to just be more clean cut, 5 years, that's it, end of story.
Do you think this will change what we talked about earlier in terms of the international recruiting, scouting?
It'll just make it earlier, I think. It'll just make it earlier. And for a lot of these coaches too, if you can get a truly valuable piece for 2 years, 3 years, as opposed to hoping you get a one and done level guy who's going to be with you for 1 year, I still think you'll see some college coaches lean into that, and it's smart too. The biggest change that might be you're looking at 18-year-old Europeans who can come over here and play for, a year or 2 or 3 in college and then go to the draft, as opposed to some of these European vets who can simply just get paid more here.
All right, Brian, who do you think are some of the first names off the board tonight in round 2?
Malik Thomas from Arkansas, I think, would be shocked if he is not one of the first 2 or 3 names taken. He's an elite scorer, can show more than he did at Arkansas playing next to Darius Acuff, you're going to take a back seat, but he can do more with the ball in his hands than he was allowed to really show at Arkansas. Henry Vasar as well. Kind of a surprise that he did not go at the end of the first round, but he's a big man who's got some perimeter touch, really good defensively, good around the rim. Maybe needs to get a little bit stronger and isn't the most mobile guy in the world, but knows how to make a high-level impact. Those are the two that I would expect to go like pretty early on. But I would look and see where Jaden Bradley goes. I know we were talking about this before we got on here. He was one of my favorite players in the country last year, and he's somebody who I think can come in and be a high-level, multi-positional bench leader for a decade plus in the league. You know, we saw what he could do as the lead guard at Arizona last year, but he was also a secondary complementary player at Arizona for the couple of years before that, and then at Alabama even the year before that, made an impact in both those roles. So you get somebody like that who is an elite two-way player as well. That brings a lot of value, particularly somebody who you're going to probably be able to get in the second half of the second round.
You think he's the first Big 12 player off the board in the second round, Bradley?
Should be. There are going to be so many trades that happen in the second round and so many random things that are going to occur. And the first round is particularly early on, pretty straightforward. You know what's going to happen. You know what some of the options are. The second round is where things get wild. So I think Bradley should be. I don't know if he will be.
Yeah, well said. Awesome stuff. Brian, appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Love your coverage, and we'll catch up again.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you very much.
Brian Roth, the national college basketball writer for Basket Under Review, author of the Roth Report, host of Weekend Under Review, joining us here on Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, breaking down the draft, all things college basketball. With Ari Timken, I'm James Westling. We wrap up the show coming up next on a Wednesday edition of Big 12 Radio.
A third chance for Iowa State, and Jefferson. Oh, there's a poster.
Joshua Jefferson with the emphatic slam to cap off a great afternoon of hoops for the Cyclones basketball.
Joshua Jefferson, an elite matchup player, a guy that has tremendous versatility to his size, high IQ, terrific passer, almost a guy that's unguardable one-on-one when he's imposing his will onto the game. Defensively, guards multiple positions, terrific rebounder, great intelligence in terms of defending other teams' actions.
With Joshua, versatile player, can do a little bit of everything, both defensively and offensively. On the offensive side, he's a mismatch nightmare, passes the ball great, can get to the rim, can shoot the ball, really can do it all. Defensively, he's super active, he's big, he can guard basically every position.
Wrapping up a Wheels Off Wednesday edition of Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, powered by Modelo. Don't miss the road to Arlington this afternoon at 2 Eastern, 1 o'clock Central Time, a full hour dedicated to Arizona State and their road to the Big 12 Championship. And then at 3 Eastern, 2 o'clock Central, it's Baylor for that hour, and Kansas State at 4 Eastern, 3 o'clock Central. The road to Arlington, we go through each and every Big 12 program. Right now we're working on the consensus after the road to Arlington, ranking these teams 1 through 16. The NBA draft second-round action tonight. So the Big 12 had more first-round picks than any other conference. The Big 12 had 9. The Big 10 was next with 6. The SEC had 5. The ACC had 4. Then 3 from the Big East, 1 from the West Coast Conference, and some international players. In the Big 12, I don't see the Big 12 dropping off in any way in terms of the number in the second round. I don't know that it's going to be 9, but collectively, 2 picks away from breaking the Big 12 record for most guys taken in any draft. It has truly been a historic night 1 heading into night 2, halfway there for the NBA draft.
Okay, so what is the target number for total draft picks in a draft out of the Big 12?
10. And we're at 9 already.
Yeah, so, obviously we're going to smash that record. Just some of the names that will come off the board in the second round tonight. Baba Miller, I don't think he'll wait very long to hear his name called. This is a guy that many expected him to be projected as a first-round pick. Richie Saunders, I think if you're looking for a second-round pick that could end up becoming a star, I think it's Richie Saunders. Just a high-level shooting ability. He's a two-way player. I just love the profile of him for an NBA player. Emmanuel Sharp, if you're looking for shooting, can I interest you in Emmanuel Sharp? And then, Tobe Awaka, I think could get drafted, and so will Jaden Bradley as well from Arizona. And then I haven't even mentioned Milos Uzan, who may be the best player available out of the Big 12. I think Uzan and Saunders are 2 guys that I think are potential, NBA players, perennial NBA players as second-round picks. Remember, second-round picks are guaranteed nothing, and so a lot of these guys don't even end up ever playing in the NBA. I think those are 2 guys, in Uzan and Saunders, that could be perennial NBA players out of the second round.
So if you're an NBA general manager and you're sitting at, let's say, pick 35, you're taking Saunders. Are you taking Saunders or Uzan?
Saunders.
He's a stud. He's a baller.
Yeah, and if I'm taking a pick 35, I'm the Denver Nuggets. So, yeah, Saunders.
Yeah, good point. So the Nuggets have pick 35. The second round, there are so many trades, and everything's ESPN has to do a better job, or somebody, of breaking down who's actually making the pick. Who's actually making the pick?
Yes.
Where are these teams actually going to?
Basketball Association. It's absurd. It's as absurd in the second round as it is in the first round. It's super confusing for the viewer because you're looking up at the screen, you're seeing the Knicks took this guy, and then you're like, yeah, but not really. Yeah, the Knicks took Cam Carr, but he's going to the Lakers. Well, then put a Lakers hat on him and put a Lakers logo up there. This isn't that confusing. It is for the audience, though. It's really mind-boggling. It's all about the league year. So then change the league year. It's wild.
It was an emotional roller coaster for me watching Koa Pete get drafted. Because at first it's, okay, the Mavs have pick 30. Koa Pete, let's go. The next Julius Randle. And then he's traded to the Knicks. And then somehow he ends up in Phoenix. Second round pick number 31. It says the Knicks via Washington. It could be the Grizzlies. It could be the Timberwolves. I have no idea.
Yeah, it just tell me what team he's on. Can you just do that? Can you just do that? And then even, and this is the issue again with TV, but what are they supposed to do here? Reported trade to, and then it puts the team up. So it's like, okay, that's who it's probably, but it even makes it sound kind of ambiguous. I'm out on it. It's, at this point, I'm responsible for the teams that I'm responsible for.
How'd you feel about your Bulls draft last night?
Very good. The Bulls in 1985 took a guard on North Carolina named Michael Jordan, and last night they took the same Michael Jordan type guard on North Carolina with the 4th overall pick.
He's definitely a guard. So much MJ in his game. I do like Wilson.
I hope people
they're-
think I was kidding, right?
I think so. I think the
just gonna call-
sarcasm meter's high.
I'm gonna call him the baby goat.
Little goat, tiny goat.
Baby goat.
But who did they draft at, what was it, 15?
Dalen Swain.
Who the heck is that?
From Texas. Really good player. If you watched the Texas BYU tournament game, he was a star in that game. I mean, he is the Bulls right now are sort of accumulating a roster of these like 6'7" to 6'10" interchangeable guys that can guard and play both ways. I think the biggest issue right now, and Swain, the knock on him, is shooting. So like if the Bulls, who are picking, I believe at 38, can somehow get Saunders, he would fit that mold. Yeah, the Bulls are at 38. I'm sure the Thunder, though, who take at 37, are smart enough to take Saunders there because he's the type of guy the Bulls would absolutely want. I mean, he fits that mold of the two-way players with that size, and then, of course, he could shoot. So I'd love to see the Bulls land Richie Saunders. I think he'd be the perfect pick.
Yeah, Kevin Young had a major endorsement for Richie Saunders on our program yesterday, and then we replayed that interview today. Taman, did you text us that the Mavs took Koa Pete?
Yeah, he did.
And I had to delete it 30 seconds later because he was
Confusion over all that we all had over the Mavs drafting Koa Pete, but not really.
It's all very confusing.
By the way, James, just real quick, have you seen a missing giraffe?
I've heard about this. Go on. I mean, the answer is no.
Okay, you have not. Just want
I've
to make
seen a couple of coyotes, but no giraffes lately.
Got it. Okay, so a giraffe is on the loose in the Texas Hill Country right now. The Real County Animal Rescue Shelter posted on social media on Monday that Cedar Hollow Ranch is searching for Gracie, a missing giraffe, last seen last week. So if you have any information about this missing giraffe, there's a number for you to call. But man, I mean, anybody can be missing a giraffe, right? Those are hard to spot. It's very difficult to find a giraffe. Can't imagine what it would be like to have a giraffe on the loose. Like an 11-foot tall animal. How do you lose this thing?
And they're not that fast.
Do you know that for a fact?
No, I don't know it for a fact. I was looking for some reinforcement there.
Oh, I said 11 feet. They're usually between 16 and 18 feet. Females can go 14 to 16 feet. So
they're like those Cree giants up in Canada.
Yeah.
One other just little like nugget from the draft. Today I learned Darren Peterson has a brother who plays in the NFL.
Huh?
I'm serious. Hang on.
So by the way, giraffes can run top speeds between 35 and 37 miles per hour. They cannot sustain the high speed for long, typically only short distances, but 35 miles per hour.
Okay, that's pretty fast. That's cooking.
James is correct.
But animal, I mean, moving very fast.
If I saw an 11-foot specimen moving at 35 miles an hour, I think I would pick up the phone.
Yeah.
But at 35 miles per hour, he could be anywhere by now.
Yeah. No, you're right. But they're also taller than 11 feet. I was totally off on that.
They're taller than, you said 15 feet?
Yeah.
That's a tall animal. No, this is from Front Office Sports. Okay, it's verified. Daryl Peterson is Darren Peterson's brother, and he signed with the Rams after the NFL draft. They're the first brothers to enter the NFL and the NBA in the same year, ever. History for the Peterson family.
Wow. Okay. That is very interesting.
Like, what? I couldn't tell you anything about Daryl Peterson.
Yeah, I mean,
we've spent an entire season nitpicking Darren Peterson.
I had no idea that his older brother, 6'1", 260-pound pass rusher from Wisconsin, had 14 sacks, had 24.5 tackles for loss during his 5-year college career. Had 6.5 sacks this past year for Wisconsin.
So that tells me, like, Darren Peterson, all the injury stuff, like, we're concerned about, hide the creatine, right? But, like, he's got those genes to be a beast physically. If he's got a brother in the NFL, elite genetics.
I don't know how this one skipped us. That is pretty wild.
Right?
Seems like a big deal that we could have been talking about. It feels like a huge miss on my part.
Well, I mean, you're all Darren Peterson. Like, you're the spokesperson for the Peterson camp.
Obvious.
You're all about DP.
All about DP.
All about it. All right, tomorrow we are arguing for spot number 6 on the consensus for Taman Turner, our fantastic engineer / audio producer, for Anthony Smith behind the camera. He is Ari Timken. I'm James Westling. We're out of here. Talk to you mañana on what will be a Thursday edition of Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, powered by Modelo.